across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. What is it? Thursday the 6th of November, which hopefully means all those damn fireworks are done, but I fear not. Welcome to Morning Glory. We're live across the United Kingdom on, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. Loads in the paper, but as ever on the show, we'd love you to get involved. The team are primed and ready to go. You can, of course, send us... Well, you can call us and send a voice note. We prefer voice notes, but call us, please. 0344 499 1000. Only number you need in town. And Amy is pushing the buttons today, Smiler. So anything that goes wrong, it's down to her. 0344 499 1000 is your telephone number, and your texts are welcome throughout the show. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Almost daily we come into this office and we think, maybe today there'll be some good news. There'll be... No. Yesterday, this government, yet more disasters. This country just seems to be disappearing down the plug hole. Police, bless them, are still trying to find two prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison during the past week. This includes a migrant sex worker who was accidentally released by authorities, and he should have been deported over 5 years ago. When you read that out and you go, right, so he hasn't been deported for 5 years because we're so incompetent, and for the second time in, 2 weeks, a prison has released somebody, let's just be honest, somebody who has got a sex... he's on the sex offenders register. He's just roaming and the police haven't found him. Several hours later, they had to admit that actually they were unaware, the prison service said, that this had happened 6 days before. That hapless idiot, the Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, stood up in the Commons. Can I just make a point? He didn't even have the intelligence to wear a poppy. Can we I mean, what does that make you think? And he sort of didn't tell anybody. He thought it best not to say anything. Whilst he was stood up, it transpired that another prisoner was released from Her Majesty's Prison Wandsworth by the same incompetent prison service, and he didn't tell MPs. It's an absolute show, and it is extraordinary to think that we have... I don't know, a legal system, a justice system that is so flawed. An immigrant, an illegal immigrant sex offender is at large today in the United Kingdom, and it took 6 days for the authorities to tell the prison service to tell whoever to tell whoever. That is what we're dealing with. 0344 499 1000. On the back of that, which is even more extraordinary, there's a bill called the Sentencing Bill, which is about to be put through the Commons. This is one of the Labour government's ideas of sorting out the prison problem. I'll lay it out as best I can. They think if you release people early from the sentence they got because of the crime they committed, that's a really good idea because that will clear up space. Really? Yeah, what it will do is release criminals quicker into the environment who won't have been rehabilitated to commit crime again. I mean, personally, it would be a good idea to perhaps deport foreign criminals, or maybe, this is an outrageous suggestion, build some more prisons. I'd go the other way, you see. I'd say if you've got 5 years, you're going to serve 5 years, and I'm going to make sure that prison is what it was meant to be. Police chiefs are saying that the government's plans to radically reform sentencing, ready for this, will lead to an increase in crime of 6%. So even the police, who aren't that competent, to be perfectly honest, are saying if you let more people out, that will increase crime. But this Labour government believes that that is the answer. We'd love your thoughts on that this morning. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And you'll know about this story about the game in the Europa League tonight. Aston Villa against Maccabi Tel Aviv, a team from Israel. The police and a group of people in Birmingham decided that they wouldn't allow the Israeli team's fans to travel. We don't know if people are going to be there. What we can tell you this morning is that schools in Birmingham are closing early today amid fear of unrest. Just take a view of this country. Geez, honestly, maybe it's me. Now, 0344 419 1000. We would love your opinions and involvement this morning on Morning Glory, and I am delighted to bring in, at a very, very early hour, a woman who works harder than even me, Samara Gill. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Probably just waking up to my Australian voice. Yeah, that's a shock. But, yeah, no, thank you for having me, Jeremy.
An absolute pleasure. Can we try and put into words? It's on every newspaper this morning. I'm going to turn to the front of the Daily Express. Shocking release of Algerian sex-attacked convict. Labour were told to get a grip of the prison fiasco last night after a second migrant sex offender was mistakenly released. I mean, it's beyond shocking.
I mean, if this was sort of presented to a BBC drama as this sort of comedy that would happen and then it would sort of be this dramatic, horrible thing, it actually wouldn't pass. Because you couldn't write this stuff. I think Lammy is an absolute national disgrace. And I think yesterday he showed himself to be catastrophically out of his depth. I think the fact that we've had yet another one after the Hadushka Butu absolute melodrama is...
Was that 2 weeks ago or something like that?
It was 2 weeks ago. It's a scandal. I mean, we were told this would never happen again. The victim actually made a statement to ITV, of all places, and said, you know, I was very upset that he was paid that 500 quid. It seemed like a reward for him assaulting me. And this is sort of the on-the-ground response to what's actually going on here. We've got someone who is a sex criminal who is roaming the streets right now as we have this discussion in the studio, and that's what freaks me out. And that's just something we know. And Lammy knew that before coming up to the dispatch box yesterday. And he basically blatantly lied to the public. Or he's now said that he didn't want to address it because he thought that there'd be issues with the Met Police or what have you. But the Met Police have now come out and said, no, there were no issues. He just didn't want to look incompetent.
Frighteningly, you're right in terms of the victims. This man, a convicted sex offender, is at large, right? It took 6 days for the prison service to either acknowledge that or be told that.
Yeah.
How many more of these catastrophic disasters are there? And then several hours later, we hear that a man on fraud is also in prison on his way to whatever. He's been released as well. And you end up thinking, what is this, some sort of holiday camp? And then you enter this whole sort of blame game thing. But the other thing I wanted to say about the sex offender, I read, he should have been deported 5 years ago. Maybe I see politics or life differently than your average person. Would love to hear from you guys this morning about this, 87222. But why wasn't he deported 5 years ago? Why is he still languishing in our society or in prison or anything? Why am I paying taxes? Why am I sitting here working to pay for sheer incompetence? And you pointed out about the migrant who was deported 2 weeks ago. You said his name, I possibly couldn't. He got 500 quid. So what are we saying as a country? Thank you very much indeed for sexually assaulting a young girl.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for making a complete mockery out of our prison system because you managed to escape. You then put your hands in the air and we put you on a plane and gave you 500 quid.
Yeah, effectively some sort of bribe to hush-hush and get out of the country because, I mean, allegedly, but I mean, he was making a total ruckus in the plane and saying, I'm going to do my claim again. This is Hadushka Butu that we're talking about. I'm going to claim asylum and I'm going to change my mind, even though he told the courts that his one wish was to be deported back to Ethiopia. These are the people that we're dealing with. And you're right, when you talk about this guy, Brahim Kadu Sharif, who's the 24-year-old Algerian sex attacker, he was meant to be deported 5 years ago. We did pay for him to sit in prison. Now, when you put
do we know why? I mean, do we know why this morning that he wasn't deported 5 years ago? What is that? Is it against his human rights or something, is it?
I don't think he made a claim. I thought that it's basically just sheer incompetence. It's quite wild, actually, when you put a microscope to every single incident that now happens within the country. And I'm kind of happy, actually, that at least now Lammy is facing pressure to get this under control. The question is, if he can't even remember to wear a poppy,
oh mate,
and then he goes and actually steals a poppy off an RAF veteran who was in the Labour cabinet.
Yep.
This is who we're dealing with. So I don't really trust him to competently reform the system.
This is a man who several weeks ago stood up and said that Nigel Farage used to adore the Hitler Youth and had to row back about 2 hours later, admitted that it was an absolute lie. I want to talk about the poppy thing. I would love your involvement on this. There are people, I was reading about some woman on ITV this week week who didn't wear one. And while sitting here and saying that everybody's entitled to their opinion, I also want to ram it down people's throats that the sacrifices that so many people made to put this country where it is, although it's sliding down the Kazi at the moment, I don't understand why. I mean, that is the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Put aside for a minute your politics, your desire to please everybody. You wouldn't be where you are, Lammy. You wouldn't be in the society that you're in. You wouldn't have climbed the greasy pole to the position you've achieved if you hadn't been given that opportunity by the men and women who lost their lives, and I find it utterly disgraceful. And again, to me, it's this extraordinary inability of politicians, and I'm not just aiming it at the Labour Party, but this lot are as incompetent as they come. They don't seem to get it. They don't seem to understand that your average person this morning, waking up, getting ready to go to work, sit in a traffic jam, work a 12-hour shift, worry that they can't pay a bill or they're not going to get a holiday or everything's up against them and they're not having a good day, is going to look at that and go, so you live in a grace and favour house. You can't even control the prison service or put your foot down. You can't wear a poppy. You slag off this country and you're in a position like that.
Oh, I mean, especially Lammy. He's more disgusting than most public servants. I mean, if you think about it, he spent £1 million on private jets just in the past 3 months. He is totally sort of gorged in all the lavish trappings of being a deputy PM, and he has totally taken it and basically smacked the British public in the face with it. Because if you think about even this the French taxi story that came out just yesterday again, because the driver has been exonerated and he's not a liar, and Lammy really did treat him terribly and sort of not scam him, but he didn't. There was a big disagreement there. I think you see that this man's behaviour on the public stage is almost like a national security threat because he looks that incompetent. And
whether it's a national security threat or really just, you look at it.
Yeah, I'm probably being a bit too, but I mean...
Did you ever think Jeremy Kyle would say that was outrageous? But no, what I mean by that is, there's a lot to be said in politicians that you want to be able to look at and think, you represent my country, you speak sense. I don't get that. You know, I look at these people, and you just said something that's really interesting, gorging on the office of being Deputy Prime Minister. A lawyer who used to represent me said to me one day, they're all as bad as each other. Somebody's going to go, you can't say that. He said to me, the Tories are into drugs and rent boys, and the Labour Party are absolutely into the trappings and the money, and their noses are actually in the trough far more than any political party. And you look at that front bench and you think about the free tickets and the grace and favour houses, and within 3 weeks of Starmer becoming Prime Minister, the free suits, the free glasses, all that sort of stuff, and you go, really?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
We are basically saying to people waking up this morning that the incompetence of this government, and specifically David Lammy, on the back of a sex offender, a migrant being released mistakenly 2 weeks ago. I've got a grip of it, he said. Patently you haven't. Yesterday, another one. I mean, as I say, if you're waking up, shocking. The release of an Algerian sex attack convict, he sort of got lost. He's now wandering. The police haven't found him. Lammy stands up, doesn't say it. And about 3 hours later, another person, also our prison service. We're going to speak to Vanessa Drake. Vanessa Brake. I've renamed her. Vanessa Frake later, who, of course, used to be a prison governor, is now Reform's spokesperson. And she says, we just need to change. You see, I'm a bit soft. I think they're too interested in ticking boxes and making sure people are right. Because when I was brought up, the clink was the clink, and you went there and you learnt that you'd made a mistake and you served your time.
Well, exactly, and that's when we didn't have all this digital technology. I mean, you'd think in this day and age you could be fingerprinting people, you could be taking even retina scans at some point, you could be identifying people properly. And it's interesting because we know that the Labour government, or, even the Tories as well, was super competent when it came down to policing really stupid things. And we know that Labour's quite good at locking people up for really ridiculous things, like tweets, but also like, maybe not paying your licence fee, things like that. So we can see that they are capable of locking people up. But for some reason, they've got this soft touch approach when it comes to, sex offenders or murderers or triple stabbers. It does baffle me, this sort of two-tier approach that they do take. And I think that you're right. It is a real issue going forward. And I don't think that ideologically they actually do think that it's the right thing to be locking these people up and having this really hard line.
I always have this argument about, you know, these are prisons they've committed. We'll get onto the prison thing in a minute. But you're so right about ideology. Maybe I'm old-fashioned and boring. You commit a crime, you get given a sentence, serve that sentence. We seem to make excuses, well, this government seems to make excuses nowadays for the perpetrators of crime, and yet the victims are somehow... I mean, I'm thinking about this Algerian sex attack convict who was at large. What about the girl, by the way? What about the girl or the woman who was abused by that guy? How did
Never
she
thought
feel?
about. Never thought about in the public discourse. I mean, as I said, the Hadushka Butu, the family of the person who he attacked hasn't even been spoken to by the Labour government, which just absolutely enrages me. And you're right. What about the girl that was attacked by this Algerian guy? Has she been spoken to? There's so many unanswered questions here. And you're right, she does get lost in all of this because we just think, oh, David Lammy, he's the incompetent one. No, I do think the whole system does need a bit of a reform, because we can see even at the prison that Hadoush was released at, and Wandsworth also has a lot of issues. I mean,
Isn't it Daniel Khalifa?
It was Daniel Khalifa. I don't know if people remember, but that escaped renegade.
This is the guy who escaped for about a week and was hiding in a bench 50 yards from the front gates.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, what honesty. I've got loads of response already. Jay in Brighton, good morning, Jez. How nice to hear Samara. Great show. Why does Starmer, this is for you, why does Starmer always give 100% support to every single member of his staff that muck up? I can answer that, but I'll let you start with it.
Well, go on, tell me.
Because he's inextricably linked to all of them, and he's as incompetent as them. And you can always tell when Starmer says on a Tuesday, I have total belief in David Lammy. He'll be gone by Friday. They're absolutely, genuinely the most talentless bunch. And I don't have a particularly high opinion of politicians, but so many of the Labour front bench never did a job. They've gone from... they've gone from university to the Fabian Society to some think tank, literally into Parliament. Haven't got an idea about everyday life, mistakes, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, and that's if they didn't lie on their CV, like Rachel Reeves famously did. I mean, you're right. I think also, though, Starmer's actually quite calculated, because Angela Rayner, was a massive...
Who?
Well, who? Yeah, exactly. That stamp duty...
Have you heard about her new business? She set up a property business called Wrong Move. Get in there, Jessa.
Is he here all week?
Yeah, well, no. Listen, Richard as well, you know what's coming next? If they'd had digital ID, they wouldn't have been released by mistake.
I mean, come on. I don't know about that. I don't even think... We don't even fingerprint asylum seekers, so I don't know what that digital ID is going to do. I mean, there's always going to be black market.
I think he was being slightly cynical. Hello to Callum in South Wales. It doesn't surprise me these offenders were mistakenly released. Look at how this government is running this country. Human rights lawyers for you. Couldn't agree more. Jez, Matt in Stourport, just waking up and packing the bags to return home from Lanzarote.
Ooh.
Landed an offer on our dream home whilst here. Christ knows if we will actually get it through after what's coming in the budget this month. We live in hope, but expectations are low. Keep us sane, pal. Great. So you haven't got an opinion on anything. You're just telling me that you're in Lanzarote and I'm sat here in the East End of London. But at least I have the talented Samara Gill with me. Mick, our police could not find a pickled onion in a bowl of fruit salad without the help of the public.
Yeah. Correct.
I do wonder. I do wonder.
Needle in a haystack.
I do. How?
How?
So this Algerian sex attack convict has been on the run for how many days?
6 now, so he could be absolutely anywhere in the country, which freaks me out considering, you know, the knife attack that we had earlier in the week. Obviously the triple stabbing by the asylum seeker, which we can't really talk about because it's an open case. But yeah, we've got a lot of crime going on. We don't need more of it imported now onto the streets. It's really, really concerning. And the William Smith guy, he was released the same day he was charged. So that second one that hasn't been talked about as much, he basically got off a Zoom call with his sentencing and then was released later that afternoon.
I'm glad you brought William Smith up. I understand the newspapers will go, second migrant, sex offender, accidentally released. Appalling, and says a lot about a man who, you know, should have been deported 5 years ago.
Yeah, and he's probably more of a danger with the whole sex attacker history than the
Brit
fraudster.
who's in prison, was about to go to prison for, I think, 4.5, 5 years for fraud.
Yeah.
Between being told what his sentence was on Zoom, because there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It just released.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mockery. I'd love to know your thoughts this morning. 6:21. Please do get involved. Samara's here all week. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Don't forget the voice notes. Get Dino on his toes. We're back in 3.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Good morning, my friends. Morning Glory for Thursday, November the 6th. Goodbye, fireworks. I think not. JK on breakfast with Samara Gill doing the papers. And can I just say, completely my fault, I should have played your clip. We're talking about the incompetence of David Lammy. This is the Deputy Prime Minister of this country, a man who was so stupid he forgot to put a poppy on. Yesterday, it transpires that this sex offender migrant has been released mistakenly into the community, right? He should have been deported 5 years ago. No, we missed that. But he was released 6 days ago. But Lammy stands up in the Commons and refuses 5 times to even acknowledge it. If you can bear it, this is Scammy Lammy on Talk Breakfast.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
And then it begs the question, apart from the lack of the poppy, which is infuriating me every time I see it, he said, and I quote, I don't want to say anything because that would jeopardise the work of the prison service, but he's already been on the run for 6 days.
Yes, and the Met Police has come out and said, Lammy, don't throw us under the bus effectively.
But more importantly,
it was fine.
How long are these dullards, right, in this government going to say, we inherited a mess? They've been in power for 15 months. I was, at the end, no fan of the Tory government. I think there were too many failed promises, and I think the British people had stopped listening to them. But really, Lammy, you've been in the job for 15 months. Absolutely deplorable. So many of you getting involved this morning. Hello to Sean in Gloucester, who says, morning, JK and the lovely Samara. Oh, yeah. So Rachel Thieves... Oh, look, we'll do that in a minute. Even Rachel Thieves is another story altogether. Can I move it from the inability of our Justice Secretary to even make sure that we know that more migrant sex offenders and other prisoners are being released into our society willy-nilly? Front page of the Mail this morning, and this, again, is a direct attack on the Labour Party. Specifically, police warn of a Labour soft justice crime wave. Now, without wanting to talk in too much detail, because it's too early for a lot of people, we have overcrowding in our prisons. In fact, I think there was a point some months ago where there were literally a couple of hundred spaces. Now, anybody with a brain cell would go, you know, we give France 500 million quid to help with the migrant thing, and they basically just take the mickey. Why don't we use that on building maybe a couple of new prisons and housing people in those prisons? And actually, rather than coming up with this barkingly ridiculous idea that the Labour Party have, which is, why don't we let more people out sooner? Instead of getting them to serve maybe 4 years of a 5-year sentence, why don't we just get them to serve 18 months and then we'll release them and then we'll have space? Because you... well, anyway, the police will do it
Jeremy,
for me.
that's way too much common sense, OK? Way too much for the morning. I mean, that's actually, like, some real tactics that could actually work.
I mean, police chiefs are saying that the government's plans, I wouldn't call it radical reform, I'd call it barking mad, will lead to an increase in crime by as much as 6% in 1 single year.
Yeah, I think this report that has come out by the National Audit Office is correct. I think that basically they're saying probation officers won't be able to cope with the huge numbers of criminals that are handed community punishments instead of jail. And I think you're right. The bigger deterrent would be to say, if you break the law, you're going to get locked up for a very long time. But this is the opposite of that. This is the soft-touch Britain that we're now living under, where you've got 80,000 phones stolen in our central capital, no one really being imprisoned for that, not a lot of raids happening. I mean, I know there are a few, but not nearly enough. And you're right, there isn't this deterrent. Even when I got my phone stolen, which is a very minor offence, by the way, the police officer who drove me back to my place was saying to me, I was just over in the Middle East, and by the way, Middle East has a lot of issues. They have no crime over there because the police officers are actually able to do what they need to do. They're able to, if you break the law, you will get locked up. I mean, you're right. Britain actually used to have the best police service, potentially in the world. We were looked up to. A lot of other countries looked to us.
Well, they used to look up to us to a lot of things, and that's what destroys me on a daily basis. And by the way, I am the least fan of Keir Starmer, but this goes way back, and this can be parked at the front door that Theresa May, to me, was one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had. But as Home Secretary, she decimated the numbers of policemen and women on the streets under the guise of austerity. It was very easy back in those days under Cameron to say, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll get rid of police on the streets, we'll get rid of the military will decimate because it's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, that's come back to bite us. In terms of policemen and women, Blexley always says it, he's on later, which is really true. You get intel on criminals.
Yeah.
You give the impression that through presence on the streets that crime isn't going to be accepted. But if you basically are saying to a shrinking police force, look, there's your computer, there's your box, tick 4 of them, give the person a crime number, nothing gets sorted. But this is like a cancer. This goes from the top. We've got judges who give out completely disproportionate sentences. We've got a legal system that seemingly you can find holes in through a human rights law from wherever, probably paid for by the taxpayer. If you do get sent to prison, it's not that difficult to escape, judging by the sorts of stories
well,
we're
that's an
hearing
early
today.
release scheme of itself, isn't it?
And if you do want to break the bloody law, you can do, because there's no policemen and women on the streets. And anyway, I mean, what message? This is for everybody this morning. What message does it send that in this country you can shoplift as long as you don't nick more than 200 quid's worth, no buggers coming for you? I really would love to know what people think about this morning, because I think that is like a national disgrace. I grew up, we were scared of the police. What's wrong with that?
It's not like that anymore. And I think this report coming out is even more damning after that phone call that was on Julia Hartley-Brewer's show of that woman basically crying her eyes out because she felt too unsafe to even leave the house in her own country. This is the state that Britain is in right now. And to hear that because of all these horrible schemes that are being introduced, that people are going to feel more unsafe on the street because there's going to be more crime and there's going to be more criminals let out, which, by the way, last time they did that, which, to be fair, was the Tory policy that then happened under Labour, there are a lot of people that were not informed. So we had domestic abusers being released early and their victims not knowing and them showing up to the doors of their victims. It's just, this is what's actually going on here. And I think that when they say, oh, we're just going to clear some prison space, it's very easy from the comfort of Westminster to say that. But you're not out there experiencing what's actually going on. And
remember that footage just after the Labour Party got in? I remember, I don't know what show I was doing, but they cut to a prison and there were these lags, is that what you call them? Literally walking out of prison in new trainers with designer bags, and it was like, this is absolutely fantastic. About 50% of them, unless I'm missing the point, recommitted a crime and were back in the clink within like a month. It shouldn't be window dressing. Why do we now live in a country, right, that seems to make excuses for people who commit crimes? We get hung up on the migrant debate, and I get that. But we can look at this away from that and say, our justice system is so flawed. It's frightening, I think. And yet, and I want to make this point this morning, remember Southport?
Oh, yeah.
So after Southport, because of course then the government said these are all far-right thugs, he managed to release... wrong word. Starmer's militia, 6,000 policemen and women, took to the streets, and within 24 hours had arrested 700 people. Within 24 hours. Within the same 24-hour period, despite the fact there's a 3-year waiting list to go to court, all of them have been tried on camera, and within the same 24 hours, space had been found in prison to put these people away. Great show of strength by Keir Starmer. Convenient, yes, whatever. The fact is, it's really easy about prisons. Love to know what you think. There's 2 things I'd do. I'd build more bloody prisons, but more than that, we've got 12,000 foreign criminals in our prisons.
We do.
Deport them. What's wrong with that?
They account for over 12% of the prison population. That's not acceptable, because that is a massive imbalance, actually. And it's quite interesting because this report says that basically this Labour sentencing bill will be result in a massive crime wave of more sexual assaults, more rapes, and more violent crime committed in the communities. And they're actually basically saying that, yeah, I mean, the foreign criminal population, that should be deportations. We know that obviously a lot of specific groups are more susceptible to these sexual assault violations. And I just don't think that we should be paying, you're right, when we have got this heaving prison system, we shouldn't be paying for foreign nationals to be here under our system. They should be going back home. They should be serving their sentence over in wherever they came from, Algeria, for example.
Yeah, it's all this apologist stuff that seems to be at the forefront of this government, which is, you know, we'll apologise for the perpetrators. We'll apologise for the people that make mistakes, not the victims. Darren's great, by the way, in Maidstone. Darren is fantastic. Jez Samara, the country, in my mind, has served 18 months of a 5-year Labour sentence. Do you think we could get early release? Love it. Steve, was the 1 in, 1 out scheme, 1 in on a boat and 1 out of prison? Possibly. Good morning, both, says Jeff. And Peter Stone. Morning, Jez Samara. I knew Lammy was going to make a dog's bleeding dinner at PMQs. The Tories played it perfectly, hook, line and sinker. And to top it off with Mastermind having a meltdown was worth getting the popcorn out for. I don't know. We haven't got that clip of him on Mastermind. We've got to find that. It's absolutely extraordinary. David Lammy got his own name wrong. We'll play that after the break. So listen, get involved. 0344 499 1000. Going through the papers with Samara Gill right here on Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 to 7. Listen, that's a very important point. I wanted to say that. We have a new app. Well, we haven't got a new app, but the app's changing. And you need to download it because it doesn't cost anything like the bloody BBC. It's free. You can watch and listen to Talk. The new app, the Talk TV one is going. Talk app, brand new. Do it, download it by the 1st of December, 20 to 7. Samara, good morning again, brilliant.
Morning.
Morning. If criminals did whole sentences, we could save billions scraping the probation services and all the time spent letting the wrong people out of prison early, says Rich in Cheltenham. I probably am going to be really unpopular. That'll make a change. I think the probation service is not fit for purpose either. And people will phone me and go, it's overstretched. Well, we need to look at that. We need to change that. You're not very impressed with David Lammy, are you? A couple of voice notes. James, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. Now, why is this absolute David Lammy the absolute muppet of muppets? He should be out of a job now. All this government do, Jeremy, is just blame the other lot. And that's all the other lot did with the other lot. Absolute shameful. Absolute shameful. We need to get reform in there now. This country needs a fresh start. Absolute muppets running this country. They've had their chance now. Now get lost. Starmer, do one.
Brilliant. It's such a happy man. Talking of which, before we move on to the other voice note, have you got a picture of that guy of Keir Starmer? Can you put that up for me? I found this absolutely extraordinary. Right, front page of the Daily Telegraph is a picture. There it is. Right, it's on screen now.
Lordy.
This is Edenbridge in Kent. This is basically a guy, right? A penny for the guy. This is Keir Starmer. Starmer the farmer harmer. I don't know how tall it is. Massive. They're going to set fire to it on Saturday. 36 foot. It's going to be set fire to on Saturday night. Could I just point out to Keir Starmer or any of his lackeys who are listening, and I think this is potentially a political low. In Edenbridge, Kent, they canvassed public opinion with the names of several people. Keir Starmer and people's hatred towards him, he beat Prince Andrew and Andrew Tate. Now, I've had moments in my life when, you know, anyway, we'll talk about that. But Prince Andrew and Andrew Tate, you've got to be particularly not having a good time if you're hated more than them.
Oh, no, but he's done that to himself. He's dug his own grave in this situation. I mean, can I just say the small glimmer of hope here is that we do live in a country where we can do that.
Yeah.
We can burn a sort of statue of the Prime Minister and we can get away with it, at least. But it seems like...
Can you? Are we all going to be arrested for going to that?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, has he stepped in? Has he come up with some sort of new situation, some new law that can get people behind bars for that? I mean, I don't think he would, but it's quite glorious that we are able to do that. But that's all we can do at this point. We've got, as one of the texters said, we've got kind of 4 more years of this sentence, and we're probably not getting an early release unless it's from the IMF.
Listen, there is a chance that what happened to Liz Truss could financially happen to Rachel Thieves. Kitty, what do you make of David Lammy?
I just wanted to say something about Lammy, because you said that he didn't have the intelligence to wear a poppy. I actually don't think he had the decency to wear a poppy. He doesn't appreciate that people died so that he could be a greedy, grabby buffoon on the world stage.
I think that's really right. I think I absolutely take my hat off to you, Kitty. I think decency is absolutely the right word to use, isn't it? Because, you know, again, respect, decency for people who did so much for this country. And it does sum the Labour Party up. And people can go, oh, are you attacking? No, it's not even personal. It's just embarrassing. It's utterly embarrassing.
It's the same one who went... Lammy is the guy who went on marches when Trump last came to the country a couple years back in his first term. This is a guy who absolutely doesn't have sort of nationalism for the country. I mean, when you think about it, this was his first PMQ, so he absolutely only would have been thinking about himself. And when you think about respect, he actually, the Times broke this just a couple hours ago, but he refused to come back to the dispatch box after the Speaker specifically asked him to come back to answer that question about any more freed.
Refused.
Yeah, he refused to do it. So that just shows where his ego's at right now.
Completely agree. 6:45. What do you make of it? We're waking up to lots of stories, but the 2 main ones. Police are still trying to find 2 prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison during the last week. We've seen Calamity Lammy yesterday in the House of Commons refusing up to 5 times to answer a question, which is, how long did you know about it? An Algerian sex offender who should have been deported 5 years ago, it transpires, was released mistakenly 6 days ago. 6 days. Lammy refusing to accept this. Later in the afternoon, Wandsworth Prison had to admit they let another man, an Englishman who was in jail for fraud. He'd just been given his sentence and he was just let out the back door, for God's sake. This is on the back of the fact that you're waking up to the news that this government's idea under its new sentencing bill to cure overcrowded prisons is to release prisoners after about 30% of them doing their time, because that'll free up space to give more prisoners sentences that'll only last 30% of the time, so that they... We've a theory on the show this morning. Why don't you build more prisons and why don't you deport foreign criminals? Would love to hear from you. Hello, this is goodness. This is good. Jez, Samara, I'm an ex-prison officer. I can tell you the prisons are a joke. No deterrent whatsoever. It's honestly just a stopgap for criminals to learn more ways to commit crime. In fact, cons still carry on committing crime inside. Drugs, assaults and things I won't haunt you with. But for me, as an ex-prison officer, genuinely, and I'm not massively political, David Lammy in charge. Are you absolutely joking? This is extraordinary and begs a question of you. This says, good morning, Jeremy and the lovely Samara. If Rachel Thieves of Westminster increases income tax by 2%, then will the government provide sick pay and holiday pay for the self-employed, as we don't have any employment benefits? Complete and utter disgrace. Tell Samara I'm off to Oz.
Oh, yes, well, you'll get taxed even more over there. We've got a basically identical Labour government over there that's taxing people to the hilt. I mean, Rachel Reeves is so desperate to tax people that it's on one of the front pages this morning. She's actually now going to tax electric cars, potentially.
Honestly, this is an extraordinary story. Front of the Telegraph. Pay per mile tax to hit drivers in budget. Yeah. People with those electric cars.
That you were told to get just a couple years back by the sort of ULEZ waving Labour government that presides over London. Electric cars will now be taxed. That's how desperate she is, and that really worries me, because you can see she's trying to pinch pennies wherever she can, and this is sort of a new low, actually.
I was on her the other day at 8 o'clock when she did her little sort of pre-budget joke, and it's 26 minutes of my life that I'll never get back, and people thought I'd left the microphone on by mistake, but I was just eating a biscuit and watching it. She spent 18 minutes telling the country, the world, that everybody else was to blame for her sheer inability to add up and make numbers work. Didn't say she was going to do it, but said, you know, we must all bear the burden. So you know, don't you, on November the 26th, there will be tax rises. And what makes me laugh about Rachel Reeves, and people think, oh, you know, bless her. No, not only did she lie about who she was, but here's the thing. If you are given a job, if I said to you, Samara, right, Talk is 20 million in debt, OK? Yeah. When you come in, I need you to make it cost-effective, right? Yeah. So that we're in a better position. Yeah. No, what Rachel Reeves did with the so-called black hole was give £11 million worth of rises to the junior doctors, who I read this morning are going to go back on strike because they want more, her union mates. Then she gave away the Chagos Islands and £16 billion to the Mauritian people, who now don't pay any income tax for 12 months. And you look at it and go, well, now we're 80 billion in debt and you're borrowing 20 billion a month, and we can't even afford the interest on these debts.
There's money everywhere.
I was no Liz Truss fan, right? But it does beg the question, how long before the bond markets panic about this incompetent chancellor and go, as you said, IMF, 30% inflation, we're really in the mire here. Completely agree.
Jeremy, there's cash everywhere. It's just being spent on stuff like DEI, asylum hotels, sort of ridiculous ideological kind of claptrap that the government thinks that we need to spend money on. Churchill himself said that a nation can't tax itself into prosperity. And I think that rings so true. But Rachel from Accounts, what does she know about that?
Mick says Reeves must cancel Starmer's unique pension tax arrangement if we're all in this together. If not, it will prove that the elite are taking advantage. Andy in Cornwall, good morning. I love Cornwall. Jez, can people stop calling Starmer and Lammy Muppets? Kermit and Fozzie ran a tight organisation who put on a show. This lot can't run a bath. And the only show they put on rhymes with hit. Brilliant. Morning, JK. Blair started all the problems we have today, and things things have got steadily worse until Starmer and his mob, who have supercharged the lunacy. We now punish victims, treat criminals like royalty. We have no borders. Our public services have failed. We're bankrupt, and a woke ideology has infected everything.
Good morning.
Very true, but actually, I mean, God, welcome to Thursday. The change we now need is massive and needs to be sooner than we can possibly ever imagine. I think everybody would agree with that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are in absolute times of austerity, and as Rachel Reeves does like to tell us, but our policies show that we're in some time of prosperity that doesn't exist.
That's called paying people. That's called paying people who you owe that got you where you are and not giving a toss about the future. 10 to 7. Where have we been? Coming next, we're going to talk about Villa Park tonight. Sees that Europa League game between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Israeli team. A local community based on leaders and police said none of their fans can come. That will cause too much tension in a city that has a large Muslim population. It's where I started my career, loved my time in Birmingham, but they've decided if you're a Jewish fan or an Israeli fan of Maccabi Tel Aviv, you cannot travel. Many people up in arms about this, myself included. But there will be protests, we've heard tonight. Activist independent Ahmed Yacoub, we'll speak to him next. He's organising the protests. Well, we won't speak to him because, no. Anyway, he's next. We're back in 3.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. 5 to 7, Thursday the 6th of November. We're live across the UK. Samara Gill and I have been looking at this morning's papers. One of the big stories today is, of course, the Europa League game between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv. Tonight in Birmingham, in Aston, where I started my career on B or in B. Now, a few weeks ago, a local group of businessmen, leaders, community people decided that they wouldn't allow any Jewish Israeli fans to travel because that could upset a certain part of the community. There's a large Muslim community in Birmingham, of course, in Aston. Activist independent Ahmed Yacoub, despite this, is organising a protest tonight. This is him.
6th of November, it's game over for all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that. Game over.
Game over.
From that, I take the end of Israel peacefully, right? Barbaric supporters. I don't want to get into a debate about what those people think about Israel. I think that anti-Semitism and the way people treat the Jewish community is never treated the same way as other racism, all of which I deplore. But I ask this. Shouldn't football be above this? How can you call Maccabi Tel Aviv barbaric supporters?
Well, exactly. I've spoken to Ahmed actually a couple of times, privately, publicly. He's a very smooth operator because, as you can see with that video, he goes, game over, barbaric supporters, and then he goes, let's keep it peaceful. Let's not have any violence. He's basically slicing together two alternate opinions.
Why is he still arranging a trouble tonight, or rather, I should say, a demonstration when no Maccabi Tel Aviv fans have been allowed because the local community decided that they shouldn't?
Well, he's calling it a pro-Palestine demonstration. Now, last time I checked, there was some vague sort of veil of peace in the Middle East thanks to Trump. So I don't know why we need a pro-Palestine demonstration.
Love your thoughts on that. I want to do one more story with Samara, but 0344 499 1000. That's Ahmed. I've got his name. Yeah, Kabood. Thank you. So, what do you make of that? I mean, you know, do you think they should have been allowed to come to that match, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans? What do you make of that story? Very quickly, front page of the Sun with the world's greatest journalist, Clemmy Moody. Oh my God. Meghan Markle, having failed at jam and boiling water, you've only got minutes, Samara, is now going to return to being a movie star where she's going to play herself.
Look, Clemmy's great. She got this amazing scoop. Meghan's back in Hollywood. That's because victimhood it pays better than royalty these days, you can see. I mean, genuinely, this woman, there's no end to her charade. What a circus. I'm sure Harry's happy to keep sitting at home and just watching her sort of whirl out of control. That marriage, days left, I think.
I've got to tell you that the boys and I go on a golf trip once a year, and we play golf in the morning, then we have quite a boozy lunch, and we all lie on sofas in the afternoon. It's an annual thing. And when we go to America, to Florida, we spend the afternoons watching Deal or No Deal from the 90s, because Meghan is Vox 23. So it's just like that. Aye.
She'll be back there before we know it, looking at her career trajectory.
Is this not the last moment she should be a duchess? She's now going to be a film star. Can I just say, let us know what you think of that. Thank you so much indeed. Will you come back next week?
I would love to, Jeremy. I had so much fun.
Samara Gill, thank you very much indeed. You're with Talk Breakfast Morning Glory is on. The news at 7 on the way, and your calls on 0344 499 1000. Tax to or even text 87222. And James Price is next on Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Good morning, my friends. Welcome to Thursday, the 6th of November, the day after firework night. Can I just, before we get back into the news, did I hear that right? I mean, Christmas seemingly is upon us because there's trees and lights. Just heard an advert from Aldi which said, Kevin the Carrot's engaged. Good morning to my children who are watching this thinking this is probably more infantile than Peppa Pig. Ollie, Iris, can't wait to see it. And Vic, lots of love. See you in a bit. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. That is how to get in touch with Morning Glory. We are waking up to some astonishing news, frightening news, shocking news. Police are trying to find 2 prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison in the past week, including a migrant sex offender who was mistakenly released from prison 6 days ago. But the prison service didn't find out for quite a while. David Lammy, yesterday, that hapless Justice Secretary, the man who doesn't even have the decency to wear a poppy to remember our fallen heroes, refusing 5 times to confirm during this that anybody had accidentally been let out of jail, but it transpires that everybody else knew that not only had the migrant sex worker been released, but another man as well. This is Calamity Lammy. Have a watch.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
So apparently he set out the toughest checks ever in the history of our prisons. Well, they didn't bloody well work, did they, Lammy? Because 2 people, including a migrant sex offender, released by mistake, are now at large. What about the victims? God, you've gone mad for this. Let's play some voice notes. Good morning, Damon.
David Lammy is in the correct political party he should be in, because the rest of them, including himself, are a national disgrace. Yesterday's performance in the Commons was absolutely disgraceful. He's got no respect for anybody or anything. He should resign immediately because he stood there blatantly, misled the Commons.
Couldn't agree more. Dan on David Lammy.
We talk about the incompetence from this government. Just take that front bench. They wouldn't be allowed anywhere near running of a corporate company, yet we entrust them in running our country. And as for Calamity Lammy, it's frightening. It absolutely petrifies me. If, for whatever reason, the Prime Minister is incapacitated, he would take over in the running of this country.
Couldn't agree. How frightening would that be? Final one for now. Sean on David Lammy. Go.
After listening to the debacle in the House of Commons yesterday, one can only assume that these people are really not competent politicians. They are absolute idiots, all of them. And you don't really have to worry about the Labour Party anymore, because the Labour Party now is just destroying itself on a daily basis in front of the eyes of everybody.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, guys. Keep those voice notes coming. 0344 499 1000. Your texts as well. 87222. Hello to Natalie Badge. She says, morning, Jez. What the hell is going on in this country? How are prisons releasing people by accident? It's absolutely disgusting this is happening, as it's big news. But what about the poor victims, especially those who are victims of domestic and sexual violence? Couldn't agree more. Nobody gives that a thought. We say a very good morning. Great friend of mine, former government special advisor. Been a while. James Price, how are you, my friend?
Good morning, my man. How are you? I'm looking forward to chatting David Lammy about anything else. It's going to be great.
Can I make the point about Lammy, which I refuse to apologise for? He doesn't even have the decency. Honestly, this annoys me as much as his inability to work properly. He didn't even have the decency, Jay, to wear a poppy yesterday. Disgusting.
The whole thing is just bizarre, isn't it? Like, I know we'll get into the substance and the policy stuff because there's plenty to have a pop at him for in there, but the whole thing was so weird. Yeah. He said afterwards, oh, I've bought a new suit. I went suit shopping this morning and bought a new suit, which is why I didn't have a poppy on, because my godmother's going to be watching and I wanted to look smart for her. Really weird. Like, by the way, you know, most even prime ministers sit there for a lot of Wednesday morning doing preparations for PMQs. You pull your top team in, you go through all of it, and some people might think that's a waste of time, but I happen to think it probably is quite useful for keeping the Prime Minister abreast of what's going on in the world and the big issues and the small issues to keep them grounded. But if Lammy's right that he actually, instead of doing that for his first ever time deputising at PMQs, he went suit shopping instead, very weird, or is that a lie? And then I think the fact that the poppy he did end up putting on halfway through, on the wrong lapel by the way, he'd nabbed from someone else who was a veteran. He had to take a veteran's poppy off him. I mean, absolutely bizarre.
And I love that I think it was a voice note from Sean. We've had so many saying if something happened to Starmer, you know, he essentially could be in charge of this country. Let's talk about the meat on the bone, though. For me, you and I have talked incessantly about what's wrong with this country. Police are still trying to find 2 prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison during the last week. Of course, there seems to be newspapers are focusing on the release of the Algerian sex attack convict. This is a man, by the way, who should have been, as the front of the Express, should have been deported 5 years ago, somewhere between the guy who was released 2 weeks ago. David Lammy said, I've introduced the toughest checks. Well, they haven't worked because another sex attacker who should have been deported was released by mistake. The questions are mounting. Why did it take 6 days for the prison service to find out? Why did Lammy in the Commons say repeatedly it didn't, I'm not answering that question. Afterwards, he said, I was protecting the Met Police. The Met Police went, no, you weren't. You're trying to throw us under the bus because you're completely and utterly incompetent. We must be focused solely on the migration problem because later on, a Brit, I think, who was being sentenced on Zoom to 5 years for fraud, really bad fraud, he finished the Zoom call and was let out. I mean, it is beyond... It's just beyond me. People are queuing to go to work, Jay. People are taking the kids, getting them ready for school. They're looking at this and going, what is wrong with this country and this government? It's awful.
It's just shambolic, isn't it? I mean, it's one of these things where it would be sort of funny if the ramifications weren't so serious. You've got the Justice Secretary failing to answer a question, and for a while people couldn't tell. Does he not know? Does he know? Is he answering, in obfuscatory terms?
Or is he just thick? Or is he just thick?
I wouldn't like to think that, but if people wanted to go and Google David Lammy mastermind and watch
Have you got the clip? Have you got the mastermind clip? Somebody wave at me. Oh, they're funny. I'm going to play it before we finish with you. It's unbelievable. Just for anybody who doesn't know this, David Lammy once appeared on Mastermind. It's utterly embarrassing. Crack on, JP. Sorry.
Well, it's great. And I think my favourite bit is when he's asked the woman who won 2 Nobel Prizes, the French woman, he says, is it Marie Antoinette? Or when he's asked who succeeds Henry VIII, and he goes, I got this one. Henry VII. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? So maybe we ought to not be surprised. But I think on this occasion, it's transpired that he knew this had happened, and he did maybe have the guile to spot that the Conservatives had laid a very clever trap for him. All credit to James Cartledge, the shadow Defence Secretary. Just ask the same gentle, simple question over and over again to try and get a response. And as Madeline Grant in The Spectator said, it can't be a new experience for people talking at David Lammy very slowly, asking very simple questions. But again, it isn't actually that funny because, as you say, what we've now got, I can't believe this, we've got these sex offenders just wandering around. And I think one of either the police or the prison service or the government had a comment that said, well, he has got a 6-day head start on us, but now we're working at pace to find this guy.
I find it frightening. And what about the victims? I make that point genuinely, specifically and correctly. What about the victims? What are these poor girls supposed to think when they are sexually assaulted and attacked, and their attackers are now roaming the streets because we are incompetent? And what I would say to David Lammy, who I agree with Paul in Dorset, he shouldn't resign, he should be sacked, he won't be though, is that actually you spent a good long time, quite rightly, I think, at the end, criticising the Tories. You talked about taking responsibility. You talked about, you know, putting yourself out there. Take bloody responsibility. It is a shambles. It is a disgrace. You have always been somebody who gives it very, very straight in terms of your opinion. The other main news story today, which I think is equally shocking, I don't know if people waking up know this, but there's a new bill being put through the House of Commons by Labour called the Sentencing Bill. And in essence, if I put it in layman's terms, can I say that? I don't care. Anyway, if I just explain it briefly, we've got these prisons which are full. And the Labour Party's idea of, as I understand it, JP, of dealing with that is to release people sooner. So if you're given 5 years, most of the time you have to serve about 3 and 3.5, and then on good behaviour you're let out. No, the Labour Party would like you just to maybe just serve about 30% of the time, because then that would clear space in prison for other people to be sent to that prison to serve 30% of the time to be released. Now, they think that's a really good idea. Labour's soft justice reforms will unleash a crime wave on the streets. Police chief warns today. They say crime could rise as much as 6% in a single year. Police chiefs across the board telling the Prime Minister and his government, you're blatantly wrong. Madness.
Look, the whole sentencing situation in this country is a total and utter disgrace. You know, when you say that someone's been given a life sentence, it doesn't mean a life sentence. I think you have to have something called a whole life order for that. Why these two things are different. Why you've got these people who have committed some of the most heinous crimes that we ever expect them to be able to be allowed back out again, I think is a complete madness. Part of the reason for this is there is an unelected, undemocratic quango called the Sentencing Council that stick their beak in between where the legislation comes in and the judges, and he goes, actually, you should take these different things into account. This was the body, by the way, that wanted to take into account people's race, people's ethnicity as mitigating factors. So if you were a non-white person, that would lead you to having a lower sentence, until Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary for the Tories, pointed this out. And to be fair to Shabana Mahmood, when she was a Justice Secretary, she came out and said, I will use primary legislation to stop the Sentencing Council from being able to do this, which, by the way, is supposed to be the crowning glory of our political system, that Parliament can do what it wants, and these unelected, I was almost going to say something very unpleasant and rude there, these unelected people aren't allowed to stop these violent criminals getting out on the street. The other thing I'll say, Jeremy, is we live in a world now where Elon Musk can catch 40-story high, skyscraper-sized spaceships out of the air with Mechazilla robot hands. And we're saying it's impossible for Britain, the 5th biggest economy in the world, with aircraft carriers and nuclear weapons and all this cool stuff, to build some boxes with some doors with some locks on. What? Obviously, this is insane.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm going to argue with you. I'm sorry. I know you're having a hard time as you stand in front of your shower curtain this morning, but let me tell you, no, because that's the thing. I'm like you. I go, sorry, did we not during COVID build Nightingale hospitals for thousands overnight? Yes. So instead of giving the French 500 million to do absolutely nothing to do with the boats that are coming across the channel illegally, why don't we... Oh, shocking. You ready for this? Why don't we build a few more prisons? And then you could actually say to people, you know, I've given you 5 years. You're going to serve the whole 5 years in that prison. You're going to learn that the punishment for that crime is something you're not getting through. Oh, and I have another idea, JP. Imagine if you were my special advisor. I could save 12,000 spaces by sending foreign criminals home. It's not rocket science, and yet these people... I don't know whether they're incompetent or just mad. I've no idea. I want to move on to something I know you'll be really strong on today. This is on the front of a lot of newspapers. The Europa League game tonight between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv has taken on gargantuan proportions. A few weeks ago, a group of community leaders, police, I don't know, loads of people in Birmingham said, we don't want Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters. They're Jewish, they're Israeli, they're barbarians, don't come. I thought that was fundamentally wrong. I think football should be football. We read today that there will still be demonstrations. Have you got that video again? Did you see the video I just played, James, about half an hour ago from this gentleman? Did you see it? What's his name again, please? Have you seen this, Ahmed Kaboun? If you're just tuning in, this is a independent man from Birmingham who says, I'm arranging tonight a demonstration despite the fact that no Israeli fans have been allowed to be there. Independent activist Ahmed Yacoub. Watch this, people.
6th of November, it's game over for Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. Protesters are coming from all over the UK peacefully. We're going to protest with our families and let people know the frustration that we have. Israel should not be in FIFA. There's over 30 organizations that are involved and the numbers are going to be huge.
Absolutely. My message to those right-wing extremists and the barbaric Israeli supporters who are supporting Maccabi Tel Aviv, that the city of Birmingham and moreover Aston is the home of lions.
Lions, and we will not just remain silent when genocidal complicits come in and play football in our city. Remember that. I urge all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that.
Game over.
Game over.
James Pice, former Conservative government advisor, your response to that video?
I mean, the tragedy of Birmingham, that was once the most productive and fastest growing city in Europe and has been reduced to this. It's just devastating, isn't it? That we have now groups of men, and it's always men, not to be all woke about it, but it's always certain types of men, and they are now organising to go around marching, not just here in Birmingham, as they did last year when they organised into armed militias in response to the riots that happened after the evil Ruda Cabana Islamist murder of some young girls. And they're going, oh, well, Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, the local MP, said, oh, well, they're only organising into armed militias on the streets because they thought there might be some right-wing people around, sitting Minister of the Crown saying that, or like they did in Tower Hamlets the other month when they were marching around, charging around because there were some people that were protesting peacefully about the asylum-seeking hotel, or even 2 weeks ago when people were charging around wearing balaclavas, screaming and Allahu Akbar on the streets and all the rest of it. This is just what we're starting to see in Britain now, and if you don't like it, then you have to vote for people who are willing to say, no, in Britain, we're not going to have masked militias or armed militias wandering around in sectarian ways, screaming that they hate the Jews, right? That's the future that we're going to have for different parts of Britain unless we get very serious about this sometime very soon.
I think sectarian politics is probably one of the most frightening things. For me, you would hope, would you not, that football would be above this, but patently it isn't. I cannot let you go without asking your opinion. I know this will be right up your street. Not. Where's my newspaper gone now? Who's taken the current bun? That's Samara. She's nicked it. Front page of The Sun today. Great article with Clemmy Moody. James Price, former government advisor. Your response to the fact that Meghan Markle is making a movie comeback. She's failed with jam, honey, water that was supposed to be something more. Every podcast has been a flop. Every documentary has fallen on its backside. She's now so big-headed, she's coming back to a Hollywood movie and she's playing herself. I can't do it. I can't. It's ridiculous. Speak to me.
I've got no words for this specimen. I mean, she really is something special. We're just very lucky that we've got the Princess of Wales to be a shining example of what royalty should be like, and this may be my only chance, if I'm going to be chivalrous at all, to stand up and defend Mummy Price's curtains behind me. By the way, you calling it a shower curtain just now. I think it's a lovely, tasteful pattern for all those who are watching.
Yeah, only because you want your mother to cook you breakfast. Listen, great to have you on. We love having you on. James Price, former government advisor. Thank you very much indeed. 7:21. You're waking up to that news, as I've said, that the prison service took 6 days to tell the police that 2 prisoners, but predominantly, and I mean, it is by anybody's standards. I mean, the shocking release of an Algerian sex offender. He's been on the run 6 days. David Lammy, the hapless Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary, refusing 5 times to say whether this guy had actually been escaped. It then transpired that 2 have indeed. And I think of the victims, and I think of the deplorable situation that people are out there, and apparently we can't do anything about it. That's how appalling this government is. I'm not not being biased. I'm trying to look at all sides. On the day, this government also decided that the way to deal with overcrowding as prisons, as you've just heard, is to basically say, well, just thank you very much indeed for committing a crime, and I know we gave you a sentence, but we're going to let you out when you've served about a third of it, because it would be unfair, and it'll make places to put more people in. Why don't you build prisons or release foreign criminals? That's not so mad. We'll go to the ad break with, Simon, who doesn't think much of the Labour Party. Morning, Simon.
Why can't the government salary be performance-based pay, like what I have to do? If I hit my targets and I hit my performance, I get extra money. If I don't hit it, then I don't get it. So it gives you an incentive then to go out and make things right, instead of just being gifted everything with a gold platter.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you, 7:25. You are with Morning Glory on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense, and you're waking up to, well, yet more shocking news under this government. A migrant sex offender from Algeria has basically escaped from Wandsworth Prison, along with an English gentleman who committed fraud, both within a few days. But the sex offender, he disappeared 6 days ago, ladies and gentlemen. David Lammy, yesterday, the hapless Justice Secretary, who, by the way, didn't even have the decency to wear a poppy, shows you everything about him, refused 5 times to admit that anything had happened. The Met Police went, no, hold on a minute, stop throwing us under the bus. This happened 6 days ago. So he's out there, the victim terrified, the system broken. What do we make of our I mean, the whole thing is, this hour, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick from the Tory party, somebody who actually has an opinion on this, will speak with us on this show. In a tick, we'll speak to Vanessa Frake, Justice Advisor for Reform, on the shocking news that this government's idea of dealing with overcrowding prisons is to basically reduce sentencing still further. Get 5 years, just serve a week, and then we'll let you out, because then we can put more in. We're not going to build prisons or deport foreign criminals. That would be far too simple. God, this government. And tonight, that story we're following as well. Aston Villa, Maccabi Tel Aviv in the European League. Much consternation about this tie. The Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, the Jewish fans, the Israeli fans, banned from going. And yet, sections of the community around Aston organising protests, not wanting those people anywhere near their city. Lots of response. Sally, on that football match, good morning.
Aston Villa hasn't been a bit more vocal on this game, to be honest, and asked for it to be moved either to Israel or a neutral country so that both sets of fans can attend. These guys that are having this demonstration tonight seem to think that they rule the roost, and that's a big concern, isn't it?
Good. Couldn't agree more, Sally. Thank you. James, you don't think much of the Labour Party?
They're all toeing the line. You know, Starmer starts with 1 in, 1 out, and Lammy's now got 3 in and 3 out. And then you got a Chancellor who... absolutely. What was that about the other day? She's way out of her depth. I don't even think she's Rachel McCounts. I think she's Rachel who does admin on the loyalty card scheme.
It's absolutely true. I mean, look, just this government and just it's incompetence at its best. Final voice note for now. Carl on prisons. Good morning.
Yeah, unbelievable that yet another 2 prisoners have been released. Wandsworth Prison as well. You know, it's not like it's a new prison and... it's only just been built and it's full of, you know, staff that don't know what they're doing. Or it sounds like staff that don't know what they're doing. I'm miffed by it all. I'm miffed.
Couldn't agree more. And actually somebody who knows all about the prison system. We say a very good morning to Vanessa Frake, Justice Advisor, former prison governor for Reform. Good morning, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you, Jeremy. My head is in my hands.
We probably in the past have had moments, rehabilitation, sentencing, all this, but what does it say? And we can point at incompetent David Lammy, no poppy, disrespectful buffoon, refusing to acknowledge that yet another prisoner has been released. We shouldn't just concentrate on the Algerian sex attack convict. That's one thing. This was 6 days ago, this man. I mean, let's not forget the poor victim who's probably living in total fear, and apparently we can't find him. But several hours later, another prisoner who'd just been sentenced on Zoom, let out. I know the prison service has been taking criticism a lot, but it is completely unacceptable, Vanessa, to the British public, isn't it?
Oh, completely. Look, you know, things like this are just continually eroding public confidence in the prison system, the whole justice system. You know, it's a broken system. I'm sounding like a broken record because that's what I keep saying. And David Lammy coming up with a 5-page check document is no use nor no use nor ornament for, you know, the pressures that prisons are under. You know, your last caller said about, you know, there's staff in Wandsworth that absolutely know what they're doing. The majority in Wandsworth have less than 5 years in, so they're very inexperienced staff. Clearly, there's an issue going on with their sentence calculations. Words fail me, Jeremy. You know, I just don't understand how it took them 6 days to realise that they'd made an almighty cock-up.
And whilst I acknowledge, I agree with you, and whilst I acknowledge absolutely we should support the staff who probably are overworked and underpaid and not properly trained, this is supposed to be a system that punishes. And my gripe, Vanessa, has always been this. You know, if you commit a crime, you go to prison. I hear an awful lot about rehabilitation. I read with horror this government, this other story on the front page of the Mail today. The government plans to radically reform sentencing. Even police are saying it'll lead to an increase by 6% of crime. They basically, in layperson's terms, you know this, Vanessa, have gone, I'll tell you how we'll deal with the prison. We'll make you serve less of the sentence that was the result of you committing that crime. That'll free up space to put more people into the same prison, to be let out earlier, to put more... That doesn't deal with the issue. Build some more prisons, deport some foreign criminals, and in my humble opinion, without being called harsh, make people serve the time that they're given to learn the bloody lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Jeremy, you know, not only are they going to release prisoners willy-nilly to make spaces, but don't forget, they're going to be released into a very hard-pushed probation service who is expected to monitor all of these prisons. We know that the probation service is also on its knees. So we've had over 11,000 recalls in the last 12 months. And, you know, these prisoners who are going to be released early are not going to be ready for release. So all they'll do is they'll recall them. So actually, what we'll do, we'll just end up back exactly where we started. My thoughts are, let's get rid of the foreign national prisoners. That would free up over 10,500 spaces.
Completely.
You know, I just don't understand. Why is this Kadir Sharif, why wasn't he deported?
5 years ago. 5 years ago. Vanessa, great to speak to you. A busy, busy morning on Talk Breakfast, but we very much appreciate your involvement. Vanessa Freight there, the spokesman for reform on the prison, saying, like the rest of us, how can you be so incompetent? Support your staff, train your staff, build some more prisons, send back the foreign criminals. We're delighted to be joined now by Shadow Justice Secretary, the Tory MP for Newark, who's got a feature on this show. He was near this week. Robert Jenrick, a very good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well. Good morning, Jeremy.
Well, they're all saying, when's he coming back for Call Rob? I said, next week he'll be here. You're standing there, look at no coat, showing how hard you are. Robert, how long have I got with you? How long have I got?
Oh, as long as you want.
Good.
Actually, I don't know how long you've got, but,
listen,
ask away.
There's no point in doing the BBC on the morning round, is there? Because you'll be edited and they'll tell something that you didn't say, probably. That'll happen. People are waking up this morning utterly horrified, not only by the incompetence of David Lammy, the lack of decency in not wearing a poppy, but a government that has not seemingly learnt from 2 weeks ago. We had a sex offender released. It sent fear across the country. We then discover today yet more horrors. An Algerian sex attack convict has seemingly been released as well by mistake. But the prison service took 6 days to either find out or tell the Justice Secretary. He then stands up in the Commons and refuses to acknowledge, knowing full well this has happened. And whilst he's doing that, another man who's being told on Zoom he's going to prison for nigh on 5 years is released as well. I ask you this, do the British people not deserve more, Robert?
They do. Look, this is totally shambolic. David Lammy has overseen completely collapsing system. You've got now people being released from prison accidentally, left, right and centre. It's a total and utter disgrace. As you say, here's an individual, a convicted sex offender, illegal migrant, due to be deported. He is accidentally released from prison. It takes 6 days, for goodness sake, for the prison service even to discover their error and tell the Metropolitan Police, who now have to muster all of their officers and try and find this individual somewhere on the streets of London or elsewhere in our country. Then David Lammy finds out about it because he's got such a poor grip on his department, and we're told he goes out shopping for a suit the next morning rather than organising his department, making sure that it's actually doing what it needs to do.
Can I just for people tuning in, you're so right there. People will go, has Robert Jenrick just done a throwaway line? James Price told us out of the 7 o'clock news that when he was questioned about the poppy, he said, and I quote, "It was my first Prime Minister's question time. I wanted my godmother to be proud, so I went out and bought a suit. That's why I didn't have a poppy on. And then he nabbed one off a veteran. I mean, I literally, Robert, I know, you know, you've been very honest about the mistakes the Tories made, and I get that, right? This is incompetence on a different level. Somebody wrote to us, texted me and went, if Keir Starmer, you know, fell over or got ill or something, right, that buffoon would be leading the United Kingdom. How does that happen?
Yeah, look, it was one of the most farcical appearances I've ever seen by a senior cabinet minister at the dispatch box yesterday. David Lammy turns up, he doesn't even wear a poppy, but, you know, that it doesn't even scratch the surface. He then essentially tried to conceal the fact that he knew perfectly well that a convicted sex offender, an illegal migrant, had been accidentally released by the prison service, and he didn't have the courage, the honesty to just explain that to the public and set out what he was going to do to find this man and get him deported from our country. This is actually a very serious issue. The public are being endangered. And 2 weeks ago, when this happened, David Lammy said that he was going to put in place the most robust checks ever to ensure it never happened again. And yet, it does, time and time again. It is a dereliction of duty by this man. He now needs to get a grip of the service so this stops happening.
Couldn't agree more. And then on the back of that, Robert, I'd love your response today to the news that this government's idea of dealing with the prison crisis, the lack of space, and again, I've criticised the past Tory administration, so I'm not just singling out this, but here's their idea. This ridiculous sentencing bill that they're trying to get through the House of Commons basically says, as I understand it, the way we'll deal with overcrowding is not to build more prisons, or, I don't know, deport some foreign criminals. It's basically to allow people out sooner. Now, being old-fashioned and 60, you'll expect me to say what I'm going to say to you. I thought that if you committed a crime, the idea of a punishment was that equates to what you've done and teaches you a lesson. I would go full circle, because the police this morning are saying that if Labour's plans are allowed, crime would increase by 6% in a single year. Do you not, as the Tories Justice spokesman, agree that we should build more prisons, deport foreign criminals and make people serve the length of sentence they're given for the crime they commit?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is a total disgrace. You've got the Labour government piloting a bill through Parliament that will mean that criminals will serve as little as a third of their sentence. Thugs who beat people up, domestic abusers, these people will go to prison, if they go at all, and serve a third of their sentence. People who've committed even more serious crimes than that will serve as little as half of their sentence. When this was first announced earlier in the year, the heads of our police forces, the National Crime Agency, MI5, said that this was going to endanger the public. And now senior officers from the police have taken the very unusual step of saying today that this is going to lead to a surge in crime. Keir Starmer and David Lammy are going to see a crime wave as a result of this. You're absolutely right. What do we need to do? Well, we should be locking dangerous criminals up for longer, building more prisons, building them faster and cheaper than we have, frankly, in the recent past. Not just reaching for the easy lever of letting people out onto our streets, having served pitifully low sentences.
Couldn't agree more. You're one of the few sane voices, and I mean that. If you can, very quickly before you go, you need a leaf blower before you're on next time. The grass is a disgrace. That European League game tonight, Europa League in Birmingham, Aston Villa against Maccabi Tel Aviv was in the news 3 or 4 weeks ago when a local community bunch of people, I don't know whether it's community leaders, religious leaders, whoever, police, but they decided that it would be sensible in a heavily Muslim area to ban the Jewish Israeli fans from coming. Much uproar and people saying this isn't fair at all. Play it at a neutral venue. You can't call football supporters barbarians. We discovered today that there are still going to be protests. I don't know. Can I play you a video? It's an independent activist called Akhtar Kabir. I want to play this to people because this is going on in our cities. This man and his friends are actively encouraging a demonstration tonight, having already arranged for absolutely no, Ashton Yaqub, any fans from this country, from the Israeli team can come. Just watch this, because I think this is absolutely frightening. Have a watch.
6th of November, it's game over for Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. Protesters are coming from all over the UK peacefully. We're going to protest with our families and let people know the frustration that we have. Israel should not be in FIFA. There's over 30 organizations that are involved, and the numbers are going to be huge.
Absolutely. My message to those right-wing extremists and the barbaric Israeli supporters who are supporting Maccabi Tel Aviv, that the city of Birmingham and moreover Aston is the home of lions.
Lions, and we will not just remain silent when genocidal complicits come in and play football in our city. Remember that. I urge all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that.
Game over.
Game over.
Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary for the Conservative Party. What do you make of videos like that and the situation in Birmingham tonight, my friend?
I think it's disgusting that there are essentially no-go areas in our country for British Jews. We should never have allowed this situation to happen. Football matches should be able to go ahead, and fans, British Jews or fans from overseas, have to be able to come and enjoy these matches. What's happened in Birmingham is a total disgrace. And remember, when this was first announced, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary said that they were aghast and that they were going to sort it out. They failed. They failed to persuade West Midlands Police and the local authorities to take action. So weak are they weren't able to fix this. And now we have a part of our country which has such problems of integration that British Jews are being told that they're not safe, their safety cannot be guaranteed in that part of town. I think that's very sad, and we've got to take action to fix this problem now.
Couldn't agree more. Robert Jenrick, you'll be in next week for Call Rob. I've said it to you before, and I genuinely mean this, and I don't care if it makes me unpopular. If you were the leader of the Tory party, it would be a different game right now in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much indeed for your time this morning. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick responding to those main news stories that you're waking up today, that there are 2 more prisoners who managed to escape Wandsworth prison yesterday, including an Algerian sex attacker. But it wasn't just yesterday. They've been gone for 6 days. 6 days, and we can't find them. What is going on? Calamity Lammy, the Justice Secretary, our Deputy Prime Minister, who is so indecent he arrived in the Commons yesterday without a pop. He said, well, I mean, that's basically what he said. This is a government that wants to say to prisoners, we'll let you out sooner. That'll cure the problem. I feel so often when I'm doing this that I look at this country and I just think, what the hell are we doing? Good morning to Brian Goodwin, who says, Jez, I think you and all of the people at Talk are putting Starmer and the Labour Party, you're doing a disservice to them, because the one thing they have done is unite the entire UK. Sorry? They've united the entire UK into absolutely hating them. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back and a very good morning to you. It's Thursday the 6th of November. Morning Glory on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. JK till 10 and just, I don't know, sexual offenders who are migrants who should have been deported 5 years ago being released by mistake, other prisoners being released by mistake, a justice secretary who doesn't wear a poppy, who doesn't seem to know what the hell's going on, a government whose sole idea of dealing with the prison problem is to let more people out sooner, not to build more prisons. We've got activists threatening marches tonight in Aston when Aston Villa take on Maccabi Tel Aviv. That's already been, by the way, the Jewish fans have been told they can't come, so God knows what's going on there. Dave says they should cancel that football match. Absolutely, end of. JK says, but in the next budget, will Rachel Reeves look at the MP's expenses and all public services pensions? Of course she won't. One rule for them and one rule for them. There is more chance of Lammy winning Mastermind than there is of him resigning. There isn't an ounce of integrity in his body. I'll tell you what I do. I'm going to do it now. David Lammy has been slaughtered over his performance just at Prime Minister's Question Time. 5 times he stood up and he went, I can't, I'm not going to answer the question whether anybody's been, released again by mistake, knowing full well that a guy had been 6 days before, and he threw the Met Police basically under the bus, and they went, we're not having it, you're incompetent. He didn't wear a poppy. Somebody texted earlier and went, do you realise that if something happened to Starmer, he'd be the next Prime Minister. He'd be in charge of this country. I just want you to think about that as I play you David Lammy. I mean, this is embarrassing. This is when he went on Mastermind. Enjoy, my friends.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie. Which fortress was built in the 1370s to defend one of the gates of Paris and was later used as a state prison by Cardinal Richelieu?
Versailles.
The Bastille. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Pass.
Which country's so-called Rose Revolution of 2003 led to the resignation of its president, Edward Shevardnadze?
Yugoslavia.
No, it was Georgia.
Sorry, if it wasn't so bad, this country, I mean, that is appalling. Who succeeded Henry VIII? Came after him, Henry VII. He can't even add up. That's brilliant. Calamity Lammy, live and exclusive. So many of you getting involved this morning. Please keep those texts coming. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Francis in Sussex. David Lammy didn't show any respect for our servicemen and women as he didn't wear a poppy. I cannot give him the time of day. Loads of you getting in touch. I just want to do a sort of daily... Let's tell everybody the truth about net zero. The campaign director for Net Zero Watch, another barkingly mad Labour policy, is the delightful Maurice Cousins. Good morning, Maurice. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. We're making this into a bit of a habit.
We are, because I hate net zero and I think it's a waste of money and I think people need to do it. Yesterday, on a tour of Aberdeen, Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, said that Britain is facing an oil and gas emergency as Labour's net zero push, this mad push, decimates jobs. She says that the offshore oil and gas sector risks vanishing altogether, triggering swathes of job losses across Scotland. I'd love your response to that this morning, because it's the truth, isn't it?
It is the truth. And it's bizarre, because when I'm listening to your segment, some of your listeners, I'm sure, will sort of feel like they're living in an episode of the 1970s. We've got a government which is in chaos. We've got social problems in this country. But there is one important difference, Jeremy, one important difference. Previous generations of Labour leaders were patriotic and they put this country first. And you had leaders like Jim Callaghan and others who did everything they possibly could to be able to try to see if we could get the North Sea oil and gas online. And we have them to thank today for why we have that sector. But it's in decline. And we've had successive Tory and Labour politicians that have run that sector into the ground, and they are putting our security, they're putting our energy security at risk. They're putting thousands of jobs at risk as well. There is no reason. Yes, it's a mature basin, but there are decades ahead in terms of what we can get out of there in terms of potential. Couple that together with what we've got onshore, we've got more than enough oil and gas to keep our country going for another 60 years. You listen to the sector and they will tell you it is policy, not geology, as to why we can't make a success of it. And I'll tell you why we're not making a success of it. It's because we've got politicians, cynical politicians like Ed Miliband, who will pretend that they are doing everything they possibly can to help protect the jobs in the North Sea and all of that. But really, he wants this to be run down into the ground so that it serves his strategic ends to say that we have to get off international fossil fuels, and this is why we need to accelerate towards net zero. It's cynical, it's wrong, it's unpatriotic, and I'm glad to hear that Kemi Badenoch, I know it's galling, the Conservatives didn't do enough when they were in office, but I'm really glad to see them finally getting off and standing up for the North Sea.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that the Tory party now want to leave the ECHR. The Tory party now understand that net stupid zero is basically just bankrupting this country on an altar of ridiculous ideology. I saw something very quickly, we haven't got long, a Sky News thing. 68% of people are concerned about the climate. I'm sure lots of people are concerned about the climate, but I think people would also, if they're very honest, understand that financially this country is on its backside and it cannot afford this madness. And Morris, we're on a mission, you and me. I don't know what we're going to call it, the Net Zero Daily Moan, I've no idea, but I completely am with you. It's too much money. 30 seconds, isn't it? Ridiculous.
It's absurd. And listen, I'm going to pull you up there on some of your stats. Listen, it is true that people care about the climate, but relative to things like the cost of living and growth, it is not as important to them. People care about what's happening to their bank balances and what's happening to their jobs and what's happening to their bills. And that's what I would think politicians should be focused on. We've got people like Keir Starmer flying off to Brazil at the moment to go and do this nonsense with COP. Manifest arrant nonsense what he's doing there. We've got the world's highest industrial electricity prices. That's not climate leadership at all. No one is following us.
Could honestly love you, have you on every day. You've got nothing else to do in your life, and neither have I. Thank you very much indeed, Morris Cousins. Brilliant. Net Zero Watch, 6 minutes to 8 o'clock. Where did that hour go?
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Quickly to the phones in Hertfordshire. Andrew, you're on. You've got 1 minute only. Go.
Yeah, Lammy was asked a question. The answer was yes or no. Lindsay Hoyle did not step in. If you look at him, he looks like the pantomime dame from Cinderella. That is showing contempt for people. They think we're idiots. Watch Lammy's behaviour. He knows he's lying. He's a liar. And remember, he said the biggest threat to the world and this country was climate change. It's not. It's illegal immigration and a failed Labour government.
Top man, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew in Hertfordshire. I'd love to speak more. I can't. Richie in Grimsby. Jez, I'm well aware that I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I fit truck tyres for a living. But, he said, having heard Lammy's attempt on Mastermind, I feel like a bloody genius. Good morning to Pete, who says, Carl from up north. Sorry, Aston Villa should postpone that match this evening to show which side they are on. You're waking up to the news that prisoners are still escaping, including an immigrant sex offender. The government wants to let prisoners out sooner. That game in Birmingham, the Jewish community up in arms. So much to talk about on Morning Glory. Still to come, Kevin Foster, former immigration minister, Peter Blexley and Isabel Oakeshott, and your calls on 0344 499 1000. Keep them coming. We will go to the news at 8 and we'll be back with more on Morning Glory.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On the app. On your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. If you're just tuning in, you're with Talk, the home of free speech and common sense and morning glory till 10. You're waking up to some astonishingly frightening yet sort of almost predictable headlines. Yesterday, our hapless Justice Secretary, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, a man who didn't have the decency when he stood in for the Prime Minister of Prime Minister's questions to even wear a poppy, refusing 5 times to think to that question, has anybody else, have any other prisoners escaped? This is what he did, right? When the whole country knew that an Algerian sex attacker had actually escaped 6 days ago. This is what Lammy said to the Commons. Does he lie or what? Have a listen.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
Love to know what you think of this morning. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. If something happened to Keir Starmer, that man, ladies and gentlemen, would be our Prime Minister. Peter Hannon says Jez Lammy is so lacking in intellect, his only way of reacting to questions he can't damn well answer is attacking, shouting or laughing. We, in the meantime, are becoming the laughing stock of the world. Jez, David Lammy misled the House of Commons. He knew the illegal migrant was released, therefore he should resign. He broke the ministerial code. He is a disgrace and should go now, says Gabby. But he won't, Gabby, because he sums up entirely what this Labour Party is all about. Very good at bluster, very good at shouting, but the facts remain. 2 weeks ago, an illegal migrant, a sex offender, was released by mistake. He said, and I quote, "I will bring in the strongest new terms to make sure this doesn't happen again." We then discover yesterday that this Algerian sex attacker disappeared 6 days ago. And if that doesn't turn your stomach, because I'm thinking about the victim, because nobody said anything about that this morning, whilst he was backtracking, a guy from this country who was, on Zoom, had just been sentenced to nigh on 5 years for fraud. He got let out as well by mistake. The justice system is literally on its backside. Love your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. And just completely get in there, this is the same day that the Labour government have suggested what they believe is the answer to our overcrowded prison system. They're going to let more prisoners out earlier. So if you commit a crime and I, as the judge, give you 5 years, nowadays you probably do 3.5, and with good behaviour you're out. No, the Labour Party's idea is when you've done about 30% of your sentence, I don't know, a few months, just let you out. Because if we let you out, then we can put more prisoners into your cell. And then we can let them out early and put some more. None of which deals with the fact that I would have thought that going to prison is punishment for a crime. Maybe I'm out there, maybe I'm wrong. I'd build more prisons. I'd make sure that prisoners serve their entire sentences so they learn that crime doesn't work. Call me boring. I'd love the impressions now, please. Kevin Foster, former Immigration Minister. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
Not too bad, Jeremy. Good to be with you.
I feel like I'm living in a parallel universe. David Lammy yesterday, it's almost farcical. It genuinely is farcical. He used to be an MP. I'm sure you've got opinions on that. But let's concentrate on the story in hand. 2 weeks ago, a sex offender was mistakenly released, David Lammy, and the Justice Department said that they would robustly change the systems. Yesterday, shocking news that the release of an Algerian sex attack convict, not yesterday, 6 days ago, Kevin, and a man that should have been deported whilst your party were in government 5 years ago.
Well, certainly yesterday's performance in Prime Minister's Questions, it was interesting to hear David Lammy boasting about removing people from the country. I can remember just under 6 years ago having to deal with a UQ from him, having a go at me for wanting to get rid of serious and persistent criminals out of this country and giving us all sorts of faux outrage. Interesting to hear some of the views he then came out with yesterday instead. Look, we all know there's a real issue here with getting criminals out of the country due to what can best be described as a Gordian knot of human rights and international law. People will suddenly remember that they were going to be persecuted at home. They'll try and claim they might be a victim of modern slavery. And also countries that refuse to take back citizens, and a very small number, like, for example, countries like Afghanistan, where in recent times there hadn't been a regime that you could actually even talk to about returns, although that's changed recently with Germany now doing returns back to Afghanistan of convicted criminals. So, you know, if the German model's there now, something the UK should be looking at as well.
It's just to me frightening. I know you were a former Tory MP, but these people are at best incompetent. I mean, you're on the show this morning, you've got a poppy, I've got a poppy. He didn't even have the decency to wear a poppy, respecting those that gave their lives to put him in the position that he is today.
Yeah, it's remarkable, Jeremy. I once PPS'd for a chap called David Lidington, who was effectively Theresa May's deputy. Oh. And one of the things, if he was going in the chamber in the time between, you know, the start of the Poppy Appeal and Armistice Day or Remembrance Sunday, depending on which one was later, one of the things you'd both do before you went into the chamber was check you had a poppy on, you both had one on, and I always used to have a spare one in my pocket after the PPS just in case. And even, people may be interested to know, a lot of times there's a supply of them just outside the chamber. It just shows a really chaotic set of preparation, a man really not up to it, and his team equally poor, as evidenced by the performance he then gave.
What's the answer? You talked about the ECHR, you talked about deporting foreign criminals. It seems to me, and listen, I'm not having a go at you, you're no longer in Parliament. I believe that I find it quite interesting that the Tory party is now, you know, criticising net zero. Kemi Badenoch yesterday saying we should be out of the ECHR, language that Reform has been spouting for 2 years, and I don't know why the Tories didn't do it while they were in power. But it can't be right, can it, that a sovereign nation can't prosecute somebody, can't deport somebody because some antiquated law that people pretend still is relevant because Churchill was part of it. No, 70 years have passed. The ECHR is blocking us, I think, in being able to make the decisions that we always felt we should be able to make, which is one of the reasons we left the EU. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Jeremy, we have to make a decision. Are borders sovereign? Yeah. If borders are sovereign, and you believe they're sovereign, then you should be able to enforce them. If you can't enforce them, they're not sovereign. That then means the discussion about actually quite a network of law. It's not actually just the ECHR. We've got things like the Statelessness Convention, the Refugee Convention, a lot of law that was written up, international law, in the aftermath of World War II, in remembrance of what had happened in Nazi Germany, yet now is being serially gamed by people who are not going to face the type of persecution people faced in Nazi Germany. You know, the famous chicken nuggets case we had. No one in the 1950s was thinking that, you know, we must sign this up to ensure some kid gets their right to eat the right brand of chicken nuggets.
Why didn't your party try and leave the ECHR in the 14 years they were in power? It's a reasonable question, mate.
Well, first, Jeremy, the first 5 years we were in coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and I think we all know their views on European law and international law. So the chance of leaving with them there, you know, at the time, I suspect there was some of us like me, Tom Pursglove, Pretty, you know, those of us, let's be honest, who got scars on our back from having to deal with this type of stuff, trying to get people out the country who would have wanted to go further in terms of it's not about getting rid of human rights. It's about actually reinstating the original purpose of them, and it's not to protect the most dangerous people stay in this country because they've suddenly remembered they wanted to have a great relationship with a child they haven't seen in some cases for a few years, or even where the local council's been blocking them for access because they're a convicted paedophile. So there is a need to go further. Also, I think the national debate has changed as well. If 4 or 5 years ago we'd been suggesting leaving the ECHR, we'd have seen a lot of shroud waving, there'd have been a lot of complaining going on, and a lot of mainstream media, I must say, not yourself, not one or two other parts of the media, they would have been lapping all that up. It would have been terrible. It would all about ending trial by jury and everything else. Well, some of those rights have existed for hundreds of years in this country and are not going to change if we leave the ECHR. But what could change around just not only the ECHR, but also things like the Stateless Convention of areas, is actually stopping the ability of people who, if genuinely you were fleeing persecution, you were in France, a democratic country. You could have made any of those claims there.
Yeah.
If you decide to come here instead, in many ways, you've already proved that you actually weren't looking for safety.
Listen, you talk such sense. You were the immigration minister. Here's how I've always seen it, right? This country has always, I think, rightly, been the sort of moral leader and done the right thing. But you will not convince me, and I voted Tory for however many years. I didn't in the last election for this reason. You won't convince me that a majority of people who are escaping war-torn countries are being truthful. I think we did right by the Ukrainian people, and I think we've always done right. Bear in mind this country's on its backside and can't even afford the interest on its debts. But when you leave this war-torn country, three things always hit me. Why didn't you bring your wife and children with you? Because if there were bombs raining on my wife's head and kids, I'd bring them. That'd be the first thing. Also, if I was escaping a country where bombs were raining on my head, the first country that I got to, Kevin, that was safe, I'd stay there. The truth of the matter is, we have the biggest pool. We give the most to people who come to this country under this false guise of we've got to apologise for the past or the Brits are the best. And I think we've reached the seminal moment for one reason and one reason only, which is that the British public are struggling, not in terms of people in Eritrea, but when you're in a tent in France and you can get a 4-star hotel, we all know what that choice means. But when you're grafting for 12 hours a day and your council tax has gone up, your energy bill's gone up, the food that you put on your kid's table is 3 times what it was, suddenly the silent majority go, do you know what? This isn't fair. I'm all for fairness, but the fairness is not now about the indigenous population. And I hate to say it, but that's exactly what Reform have been talking about for the last year, and the Tories are finally climbing on board. That would be a fair comment.
Well, Jeremy, some of us have been talking about it for quite a while, except that, the party's recently just changed its policy. I'm saying I've voted for Robert Jenrick, partly because of him saying exactly what we've just said there. But you also hit the nail on the head. The difference between our routes that we set up to help people directly from war zones, so, for example, the Ukrainian one, are mostly used by women and children or families. So the Afghans we evacuated following the Taliban takeover, it was mostly large families. Arrivals at Dover in the morning, mostly single men aged 18 to 40. That is your biggest difference in this area. And that's when it points to gaming of the system going on. Look, there are other countries that have dealt with an issue like this. Australia, a close ally of ours, similar legal heritage for very obvious reasons, because pretty much we set up their court system and constitutional system. That is something we can look to. And also we can increasingly see the evidence coming out of the United States as well, where the Trump administration has taken a range of actions to deal with the crisis they were having on their southern border. So there's models there. There's decisions we can make. We're not following dictatorships, as some try to argue. We're following the models of modern democracies, and it's up to which party wishes to pick it up. I think the one thing that, Jeremy, you were saying, you expect me to say, is what we can't afford is then to find that another 3.5 years of what we're seeing day to day going on. Labour do need to deal with this issue if they want to have any hope at the next election. And ditto, we also need to ensure that split votes don't see us result with those parties like, for example, the Greens, the Lib Dems, holding the balance of power in the House of Commons. And we all know that there's no chance they'd want to deal with any of this, because actually they think the problem is we're not welcoming enough.
Don't get me on the Green leader. This is the man who used to be a hypnotist and believed that he could enhance the size of women's breasts. That's what Zach Balansky is. Can I ask you a genuine question, man to man? Would you defect to the Reform Party if you thought Reform were going to be the next government? You sound to me like almost everything you say is exactly what Nigel Farage has been saying.
Well, Jeremy, look, I want to see this issue dealt with, and I wish all the best to anyone who's dealing with it. I'll get on well with Lee and others. But what I don't think anyone should do is just defect to a party because they think they might win. My questions with Reform would come more on things like their fiscal policies and other areas. But look, we all want to see this problem dealt with. I'd like to see Shabana Mahmood pick up these ideas, get on, drive something forward and deal with it. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to see people arriving in the country each day and then these endless headlines and the real danger for real people from criminals that we can't get rid of, even when our law says, and it's quite clear, it was passed actually under a Labour government, that if you get a sentence of more than a year in jail, you should be automatically deported. Yeah, that doesn't happen because of this network of human rights law.
And that Algerian sex attacker who was mistakenly released 6 days ago, perhaps even more shocking is the news, he was due for deportation 5 years ago. Finally, to back up everything you said, Kevin Foster, I don't know if you know this, but do you remember that Iranian national who basically got here illegally and was deported to France under
Boomerang
Starmer's,
man, yeah.
under Starmer's 5,000 in, 1 out policy that hasn't gone very well. He came back. Did you know that? We sent him away, and he came back. Well, he's been sent away again. But when he came back, he said, honestly, this makes me laugh. The reason he left France and came back again was because he was a victim of modern slavery in northern France.
Yeah, I suspect he remembered. Yeah, I suspect he remembered he was might be a victim of modern slavery about the time he met his lawyer. It was absolutely farcical. You know, let's hope this boomerang doesn't come back again. But it does show some of the issues. I think actually been quite generous. I think it's near 10,000 who've come over since the deal was signed, and about 70 that have gone the other way. But it does show the challenge that, and also the need to remove people on. But again, here comes some of the discussion. Here's some stuff we need to have as a country. We do return some criminals to Iran. Should we do returns more generally to Iran of those who've clearly come to gain the system? And yeah, any protection he needed, he could have met in France. France, modern democracy. Many people go on holiday there. You know, it's 80 years since the war ended in terms of mainland France. So this, for me, again, it's a case of, yes, that deal has made some impact, some difference, but we've seen the problems is people will try out an asylum claim and then try and come back and try out a modern slavery one. And it shows why we need to probably change the legislation to basically remove the ability to make a range of claims from those who clearly could have made them in France.
Real common sense, Kevin Foster. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Former immigration minister under the Tory government, 8:20. You've gone completely mad. Jez Lamy is a complete tool, the Benny Hill of the front bench. What the hell is going on with this lot of circus, says Glynis, with Starmer playing the ringmaster over a brainless, corrupt and traitorous government. I'm gobsmacked by their incompetence. Morning, Jez, says Tony in Southampton. If we can't leave the ECHR, can't we just ignore it like the rest of Europe? That would make sense. Clive's in Solihull, which is the posh part of Birmingham. Oh, yes. David Lammy is just the latest example of a Labour politician being promoted above their ability, Jez. He and the rest of the cabinet are so clearly out of their depth and are ruining what's left of my country. We need a general election now. As for not wearing a poppy, don't get me started. Good morning to Trevor Jenkins. Jez, being in the ECHR... is a bit like we're using Windows 98 right now. Trevor, normally from Harrow, but listening from Manchester. Margaret, North Yorkshire, good morning. Ask the military to build Nightingale prisons, razor wire around it, recruit veterans to guard them. They do not come out until their sentence is complete. It's not rocket science. Paul is in North Yorkshire. Loads of you responding, and I appreciate it. Jez, prisoners getting rewarded for good behaviour. If they had to serve the whole sentence, there would be no incentive to behave, so it will never happen. I don't think you should have to behave to get off your sentence. I think you should be forced to behave whilst you serve your sentence, otherwise you won't get out. Carol Ann, good morning to you. She says, this is Labour's 1 in, out plan, only they didn't tell us they meant prisoners too. Dean's in Derby. I've always said if I was given the chance to rid 3 things in the world, I only had 2, mosquitoes and adverts. I now have a third, the Labour Party. If your listeners had a chance, would they rid this country of the Labour Party? Hello to Stephen in Surrey. Sam's in Essex. One of your listeners said that Great Britain is becoming a laughing stock. In fact, already we have in the world. I agree with that. Don in Chelmsford. Is David Lammy appearing in pantomime this Christmas? Oh, no, he isn't. Brilliant. Finally, for now, Dean from East London. It's obvious that many in Parliament and establishment have nothing but contempt for the people and this country. And why can't they be honest and tell us, instead of thinking what we're all stupid? I demand an election now. Keep those texts coming. 87222. Your calls on 0344 499 1000. We'll go to the ad break with so many of you voice noting today. Darren, good morning.
I was disgusted yesterday. It was disgraceful by David Lammy. Not only did he not tell the public about this escaped person, but he then didn't wear a poppy. And when he did get a poppy, he got a veteran's poppy from Bridget Phillipson. What was she doing with one? And what was he doing wearing a veteran's poppy? You've got to earn these poppies.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you, 8:25. We are live across the UK. Talk is the home of free speech and common sense, and you're waking up to that headline that police are still trying to find two prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison during the last week. The first was an Algerian sex attack convict. He's been gone for 6 days, only we didn't get told that by the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy. He thought he'd hold that back. Whilst he was sort of making a disastrous attempt at lying yesterday, an Englishman who was convicted of fraud, I think he was given 45 months on Zoom. He was then let out. I suppose maybe they thought he was given 45 minutes. That's how bad it is. And we asked this morning, how? What about the victims? Sex offenders out there running amok. The government's idea of dealing with this, by the way, is to release more prisoners. That'll make more space in prisons to put other prisoners to let them out to start again. It's unbelievable. And also, David Lammy coming under massive fire this morning. Dave says, when you just played the Mastermind clip and he was thick, you actually forgot the one where he was actually asked to name a blue cheese and David Lammy said Red Leicester. Unbelievable. Morning, Malcolm.
An idea. Why don't those that are being deported, that are being held in prison, why are they not dressed in a different style of uniform rather than a grey jumpsuit? Why don't they have a red jumpsuit? That way they're easily identified. Still, that's a bit too easy, isn't it?
There's a lot of anger this morning. Natasha says, never forget, in the field of... No, she didn't. She said, never forget our Deputy Prime Minister thinks that a man can grow a cervix. Oh, God. What's happened to this country? Chris, good morning.
I don't understand why we have prisons that have been shut down because they didn't meet standards. Surely it will be quicker and cheaper to refurbish those immediately to give us more prison spaces than starting to try to find a place to build a new prison and then build it. Surely these prisons can be recommissioned.
Couldn't agree more. We say a very good morning to a legend, a man who I last saw running down the London Underground, presumably to go and watch QPR get beaten again last night. Good morning, Peter Blexley.
Good morning, and seeing as you raised the subject of my football team, I'd like you to know that they're causing me so much anxiety that today I'm going to apply for PIP.
Is that why you didn't come into the studio today? Because you're full of anxiety and nerves. Brilliant.
No, sadly, the trains are up the spout.
All right, well, fair enough, you're honest. Pete, we're waking up to this news story this morning. Police are trying to find two prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison during the last 6 days. The first, the Algerian sex attack convict. Everybody knew about this yesterday. Turns out he was released from prison by mistake 6 days ago. He should have been deported 5 years ago. David Lammy stood at the dispatch box and basically said, no, nobody else since 2 weeks ago, since the other man, no. I can't tell you. And then afterwards, when it came out that this guy had actually been released by mistake, he said, I didn't want to impinge on what the Met Police are doing. And the Met Police went, don't blame us, mate. Don't throw us under a bus. And the real absolute horror of this, apart from a sex offender being out there and the victims, is whilst Lammy was scamming the United Kingdom, another prisoner who'd just been given 45 months for fraud, he was released as well, and he'd just been sentenced. Honestly, Pete, a manhunt, the prison service, tell me some sense, please.
David Lammy, hereafter known as the Monopoly Minister, because everybody receives a get-out-of-jail-free card. Really appalling, particularly with the Algerian prisoner. The police were not notified for 6 days. So he had a proper head start on the police. And quite simply, he could be anywhere on the globe right now.
Yeah.
We don't know. The police will be looking to see if he's got any community links, any family, see what intelligence databases tell them. But I'm sure there would have been more than one raised eyebrow when that file landed on the desk and he had a 6-day head start. As for Billy Williams, well, Surrey police are looking for him. He's probably, I would imagine, as a Brit, got family contacts probably. Because if you're going to go on the run, then what you really need is a network. Somebody's got to feed you, clothe you, put a roof over your head, transport you around, and, of course, provide you with cash. Otherwise, you end up sleeping rough and eating out of bins.
It's beyond incompetent, man, isn't it? I mean, we can sit here and we can talk about Lammy, but you and I have talked enough about how we are becoming or have become or continue to look like the laughingstock. I don't understand, and I'll take it further. The other main news story this morning, of course, the government's idea, this new sentencing bill, which I know you know all about, to radically reform sentencing. This is well, it's not radical reform. They're basically saying we can deal with the problems in prison by letting people out sooner. So I'm going to give you 5 years, Blexley. Usually you'd have to serve 3.5. You'll only have to serve about 2 now and you'll be out. So it begs the question, why would you ever give anybody a sentence that they don't serve? I've always believed serve the thing you're given. Why would you not stop giving 500 million to the French for doing absolutely nothing about the boats coming across the Channel and build more prisons? Because your lot, the police, your lot, they admit this morning that this ridiculous, lets more people out is going to increase crime by as much as 6% in a single year. Hapless
Yes,
or what?
Finally, not just me who's talking about crime going through the roof. The police chiefs have actually found the courage to speak out openly about the nonsense of letting all these prisoners out, especially bearing in mind that the probation service, who have to monitor them in the community at the end of their sentences, only effectively manages a quarter of its caseload. So these people are going to be out there committing crime again, so many of them. They will then have to be returned to prison. So it will turn out to be an absolute folly of a system. And I'm with one of your earlier contributors, one of the members of the audience, who said build Nightingale prisons.
Yeah.
And I don't care if there's mile upon mile of razor wire, snarling Alsatians and people keeping prisoners where they belong, in jail. Because couple that with the illegal immigration that's happening in record numbers, the streets of Britain are becoming increasingly unsafe. And it's a government's number one responsibility to keep its citizens safe. And on so many levels, this government is failing.
Pete, it's a quick one this morning. So appreciate it. Just a final comment. QPR?
Yes, well, I'm going to go and... I've heard the PIP system is quite complicated to apply for it. But, somebody commented I might get a mobility BMW. So you never know. Things might be looking up.
PB, you're a legend. See you next week. Peter Blexley. Morning, Jez. Can you please find the clip of Lammy? Here's a challenge for you, Dino. Doing an interview on the street where he says about not having enough police officers. He says he hasn't seen one yet, and there's one 50 yards down the road. Walk straight past him. He is one big... I nearly said the wrong word. Good morning, Jez. Wouldn't it be a better idea, after we've built the Nightingale prisons, to increase a prison sentence for bad behaviour, rather than reduce it for good behaviour? Is that too much like common sense? Have a good day. No, Sue Frode. That is exactly what I think. Gary stammers. You see, there's a joke there, but I'm not allowed to do it because we live in a politically correct world. I genuinely believe that Frank Spencer would do a better job than the buffoon Lammies. He's a disgrace, incompetent, disrespectful and righteous. What you don't know is I do an incredible Frank Spencer. Or got a bit of trouble? Nah. See, it wasn't bad. Hello to Mick in Accrington. What a football team. The prison officer must have read 45 minutes, not 45 months for Billy Williams. Netflix need to get hold of this. They've been in 15 months, 8-part series already. Liz says, have a great day. She's in Glasgow. Probably better than down here. Jen is in Bicester. You know what Bicester's famous for? The shopping village where everything's very cheap. Jez, anyone who wears their poppy with pride knows it goes on the left. Lammy's borrowed one was on the right. He's an absolute... Yes, he is. Dan's a lifelong... We're going to talk about this in a tick. A lifelong Aston Villa fan of 35 years, season ticket holder for half of that. I'm absolutely disgusted with all that's being put on the name of Villa. None of the people behind the banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are true Villa fans. It's nothing more than religious hate. That is the story we're going to cover next, which is, of course, tonight in the Europa League. Aston Villa play Maccabi Tel Aviv. It's an Israeli team. It's a game some weeks ago. I think a group, a local group, whether it was the police, community leaders, religious leaders, I don't know, came together and said, no Maccabi Tel Aviv fans can come. We don't want the Jewish fans here. There are, I mean, today there are going to be activists running around and marches and they're all terrible and genocide and like that. And the question is quite simply, isn't football above this? And how can we be possibly saying there are no-go zones for Jews in Britain? Jake Wallace-Simmons, author and columnist, will be with us next on Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Is the housewife's choice. He's on from 1 until 4, Monday to Friday. He's Mrs. Kyle's favourite. His name is Ian Collins. He's a legend. Is that all right? Yeah, he's just sat there. 0344 499 1000. One of the main news stories today is tonight and the Europa League at Aston Villa's ground in Birmingham. They play Maccabi Tel Aviv. You might have heard this story that some weeks ago a group of local people got together. We don't know whether it was religious leaders, community leaders, politicians, whatever, to suggest that it would be good because of the tension between the Jewish community and the Muslim community and other communities. There is a large Muslim community in Birmingham. I've worked there for many, many years. It would be good if those fans didn't come. Much outrage from the government. They've done nothing about it. Surely football should be above this. And how can there be areas in the United Kingdom that are no-goes for Jews? Matt, good morning.
I'm both an Aston Villa supporter and a born and bred Birmingham and Jews are welcome to this city. Any football team and fans are welcome to this city. The only people that are out there disgracing this city and that football team is that gentleman there.
He's talking about independent activist Ahmed Yaqub, who's organising a protest tonight, despite the fact that he's managed to say and get Jewish fans ejected. Tell me what you think of Ahmed Yaqub. Have a watch, have a listen.
6th of November, it's game over for Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. Protesters are coming from all over the UK peacefully. We're going to protest with our families and let people know the frustration that we have. Israel should not be in FIFA. There's over 30 organizations that are involved, and the numbers are going to be huge.
Absolutely. My message to those right-wing extremists and the barbaric Israeli supporters who are supporting Maccabi Tel Aviv, that the city of Birmingham and moreover Aston is the home of lions.
Lions, and we will not just remain silent when genocidal complicits come in and play football in our city. Remember that. I urge all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that.
Game over.
Game over.
A very good morning to Jake Wallace-Simmons, author and columnist. I have my own views of that video, which are not great. Yours, Jake?
Well, it's one of many videos that we've seen, and a lot of them have been rather more welcoming of violence than that one, I can tell you. I've seen one of a chap swinging a baseball bat, another one of men, masked men, with their faces covered in the middle of the night, putting up anti-Israel slogans and Palestinian flags all over the city. It's very clear what these people are about, whether they make a few videos calling for peaceful protests or not. It's very clear that there is a direct threat to the Israeli team that are coming over, as well as any Jewish fans that might want to support that team, as evidenced by the fact that the police are deploying dogs, drones and horses in response. This is not a matter of peaceful demonstration, and also it's not representative of the great people of Birmingham. No. People talk about Birmingham being diverse. Well, look at those protests. Where's the diversity? Every single one of them appears to be from the Muslim community in Birmingham, and all of them seem to have imported the grotesque anti-Semitism that is rife in Pakistan and the other places from which they originally hail. Now, of course, I'm not saying there's no place for Muslims in Britain. Muslims who assimilate, who become part of our country, are more than welcome. Muslims died for our country in both world wars. They should be part of Britain. But these extremists are dominating the community up north, not just in Birmingham, but elsewhere. They're setting the agenda. The police are running scared. They're taking charge of our streets, and they appear to be setting the laws based on racial grounds. It should be unacceptable in Britain, but nothing's being done.
I couldn't agree more, Jake. And there's two things that I always say about this, which I fervently believe. You're absolutely right. To me, any form of racism is abhorrent, but it absolutely chills me to the bone. I have many Jewish friends. I have friends that will tell me that their kids still cannot wear their blazers, going to a local Jewish school, on the bus in London, in other cities in this country, for fear of retribution. I abhor any racism, but, and I'll underline that, I do not and will not accept that anti-Semitism isn't given the same importance. It doesn't have the same importance attached to it as other forms of racism. I think it is disgusting the way the British Jewish community is trained. And what I would say, you're absolutely right. I spent 10 years of my life working in Birmingham. I had a fantastic time. You're absolutely right about the Muslim community. It brings so much. But what I would also respectfully suggest is, why does the Muslim community not address the extremist angle and come out and basically say what we all know many believe, that it's unacceptable, that form of extremism? I've never understood that, Jake. Never.
Yeah, I mean, how many figures from the Muslim community in Britain have you heard standing up and condemning October the 7th from over the last couple of years, condemning the terrorism against Israelis, condemning violence against Jews in this country and elsewhere? Very few. There have been some, but very few. I'm not saying that the majority of Muslims support that violence, but at the very least, many Muslims are intimidated by the extremists who dominate their mosques, who dominate their community centres, who set themselves up as the voice of the community, as representatives of the community, and are intimidating our police and indeed our government. Don't forget, Keir Starmer said that he would do everything that he could to ensure that Israeli fans could travel safely and legally to watch their team in Birmingham, which should be a normal thing that people do, and he failed.
Well, he didn't fail. He
was defeated.
He didn't fail. He does what he always does. Some clickbait expert or some focus group have said if you mention you support that, that'll get you a tick, and then does absolutely nothing about it. Very quickly, I am up against it, Jake. Really appreciate you being on. Do you believe the match should go ahead, yes or no?
Well, I mean, I think cancelling the match would just be a further victory to the mob. You know, they've got rid of the fans. They want to get rid of the Israeli team. Once they've taken those steps, they will then come for other things. You know, they don't want genocidal Jews to go to their synagogues through their patch, for example, intimidating everyday Jews. That could be the next step, or trying to exert more influence over Parliament, over politicians, the way they vote, the way they behave. We can't, once you start giving in to these people, they go further and further. They want to control and dominate our society. It cannot be allowed. We've got to stand up for ourselves.
Really appreciate you being on. Wise words. Jake Wallace-Simmons, author and columnist. Thank you very much indeed. You are with Tour Breakfast.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I wouldn't want to make this programme about me, but the team do such a great job. I've just been firmly put in my place by the excellent Amy, who pushes the buttons, who just buzzed me through and went, "Do you know you're the same age as my dad?" Which was difficult enough to swallow until Titus just buzzed through and went, "You're actually older than my dad. Why don't you all go back to school then?" 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. We say a very good morning to our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott in lovely orange. Hello.
Hello, I'm not going to put you in your place today. I'm going to be on my best behaviour after your blow.
No, it's fine. I'm good. So much to talk about, but I wanted to talk about briefly, and you know we haven't got much time. You've done an amazing exclusive. We've got a little clip. There'll be more on Kev's evening show tonight. This is an ex-migrant hotel worker. Tell us a little bit more. What can we expect?
So the what we revealed on Talk last night on Kev's show was that this migrant hotel worker dealt with an asylum seeker who claimed to have murdered his wife. This was not actually that big a deal in that particular migrant hotel setting. Our source Adam, who I think everybody who's seen the clips of the various interviews that we've done, which have done, they're going wild on social media.
Yes.
Agree that Adam is a very reasonable kind of guy. He spoke very powerfully last night about, and quite movingly, about the relationship he built up with genuine asylum seekers who had heartbreaking stories. But he also talked about the reaction of the authorities after he alerted them to this extraordinary claim by one of the so-called service users. I might call them more like inmates in the asylum hotel. That the reason that he'd come to Britain is that he'd killed his wife and he was on the run from the authorities in his country. And when Adam reported that to, up the kind of chain of command, he was told, "Oh, don't worry too much about that. The guy says crazy things." Subsequently, the guy was kicked out of the hotel for drug abuse, which was hardly encouraging. I did ask Adam, do you think this guy was just a crazy person who was just sort of making this up? And he said, well, not really. I think he was a very, very disturbed guy on a lot of medication and so on. Why does this matter? Well, I don't think we really need to spell that out, do we? No. These people we're bringing into our country, folks. And when we asked the Home Office for a response on this, they took 8 hours to tell us that we were irresponsible for reporting.
Well, I've got to read it. The Home Office say that it's deeply disappointing and irresponsible of you, talkTV, that you failed to provide the Home Office with the information required to verify your allegations. What's your response to that, Isabel?
My response to that is it's deeply disappointing and irresponsible of the Home Office to be casually allowing thousands of undocumented young men into our country, not knowing whether they might be murderers or not.
Can I just play a clip from tonight? You know what breakfast is. It's just been a crazy morning, but I do want people to watch the whole thing tonight. This is a short clip of what Isabel and Kev are going to go into in far more detail tonight from 7 o'clock. Have a quick watch.
I said to her, "You okay?" He's like, no, I'm sad. I was like, why? He goes, "I miss my home country." I was like, well, "You're Kurdish, yeah, Kurdistan." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, why did you leave Kurdistan?" Because we all spoke to him. We all wanted a reason of why have you come here.
Yes.
And he was like, one day he goes, "I had an argument with my wife. I'd been drinking heavily." He said, "I killed her." He says, "Killed her with my hands." And he goes, and then I didn't want to get caught, so I had to leave the country, and I'm here.
I think the one thing, Isabel, that I take from this amazing piece of work that you've done is exactly that line, which is we are now in a situation where we have little control and knowledge of the vetting, there is none, of people who are being allowed into this country. And if we do not get off the mindless belief that we're just protecting people from war-torn countries, no, we're allowing this country to harbour sex pests and criminals, and that is not looking after your own population, is it?
That is exactly right, and I'm very disappointed by the Home Office's reaction. I would have thought, even if they couldn't verify the claim one way or another, they would simply have said, we are deeply concerned to hear about this potential case, and we are looking at it with urgency, rather than turning on talkTV for legitimate reporting in the public interest.
Listen, great to hear from you, although be it briefly this evening from 7. Isabel, that full story that shocked so many people. The Home Office can't answer it, of course they can't. That's tonight with Kev from 7 o'clock. You would talk breakfast. Sports next. There isn't a break. Sorry, there isn't. Sorry. Now, are you being completely serious? We've got no break. Well, they've just made me look very Let's rewind. That's tonight with Isabel Oakeshott from 7 o'clock with Kev. On talk. Anyway, moving on. I've got a couple of voice notes. Tony, good morning.
What I don't get is every time you show this calamity show in the Houses of Commons yesterday, and he was asked 5 times the same question, I don't know what the Speaker's job is. Why does the Speaker not have the ability to say, are you going to answer that, Lemmy? Why? What is the point of him being there? He ain't keeping no order. He just looks a bigger idiot than Lemmy.
Tony, I love the voice note, but there's a rule now if you're sending a voice note to breakfast, turn the radio or the television off in the background, because it's really disconcerting trying to listen to you and listen to my bleeding self coming back at myself. Lynn, good morning.
I think you're missing the point here. The government have obviously realised their success with the migrant crisis, the one in, one out strategy. So they're now going to apply that to the prison crisis.
Very clever. Right, are we ready? Make this look good? It's time for sport.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
A very good morning to Martin Lipton, Chief Sports Reporter from The Sun. We've just got 4 minutes. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well. Wasn't a break. I can't believe it.
I know, it's an absolute bloody outrage. Champions League last night. Chelsea being sort of Chelsea-esque. They either look brilliant or they look mediocre. There's no consistency. 2-2 against a team called Qarabag.
Yeah, I mean, it's a poor result for Chelsea, no question. Moresco rotated his players, looked to try and rest them, and ended up having to throw them on at half-time, including Garnacho, who scored the equaliser, just to rescue the result. They are so up and down. They were terrific against Milot on Saturday, murdered Spurs, really killed them. And then last night were very, very disappointing. And you know, they've only won 2 and drawn 1 and lost 1 of their first 4 games. They're the lowest of the 6 English teams in that table at the halfway point of the Champions League initial phase.
North to my second team, all my mates are there, the 2, Newcastle. I'm putting a sort of uneven sort of Premier League form behind them, winning their 3rd game in the Champions League, very unlike the last time. They beat Athletic Club 2-0, led by Dan Burn, who's just an extraordinary human being. Doing better in the Champions League this season under Eddie Howe than they are in the Premier League, my friend.
Yes, they are. It's strange, isn't it? I think that the demands of the 2 competitions are having the toll. I mean, they progressed in the League Cup as well to the quarterfinals, but their league form, Premier League form, has been inconsistent, no question. They're a bit frustrated, some of those results. They were very poor at West Ham on Sunday.
No, sorry. No, sorry. You know I'm a West Ham. I mean, West Ham were very, very good. Oh, Mark.
But you know, they haven't been great, Newcastle, in the league. But in Europe, they lost their first game to Barcelona, but won the next 3 and played really well, scored lots of goals, and they're playing like a team that has a lot of self-belief in Europe. As you rightly said, last time round they really struggled to make an impact. They only won 1 of the 6 games and went out in the group phase. They are more attuned to what's required now. There's a depth in the squad,
and maybe that's progression, pal. You win your first cup, you do well in the league. Maybe it is this season about seeing how far in the Champions League. Just very quickly, sadly, not a load of time. Man City, looking like the old Man City last night. Foden back on fire. 4-1. They're beating Borussia Dortmund. I know that people fancy Arsenal for the Premier League and Arsenal for the Champions League and Arsenal, but it looks to me like Manchester City seem to be awakening from that slumber. Would you agree?
They look like the closest challengers. We'll see more on Sunday. They play Liverpool, massive game. If City win that, they would then emerge, I'm sure, as the only real challenger to Arsenal. Foden, fantastic for him. He's been in and out of the England squad the last 2 weeks. He's got to be in the squad, I'm sure, when it's announced tomorrow morning. And Holland, of course, is just a machine. Every game he scores. You might as well start them 1-0 up and not not tell him to score, because he's going to score every game anyhow.
Mate, I don't want to get it political for you. Big outrage tonight, the Europa League game, Aston Villa against Maccabi Tel Aviv. We've had people on, they're going to go and march anyway. There's the Jewish community saying this is an absolute outrage. For me, football should be larger. But Martin from Lichfield says, Aston Villa game tonight. I've been going since 1971, a lifelong fan, Martin, and I'm not going later. I know this is a strong sentiment, Jez, but this problem is getting out of control. Football should be above this. We've only got 30 seconds. Your response, Martin?
Football is part of the world. The world is political. Football becomes political. I think it's horrific what's gone on. I think that you're going to end up with a situation where the game is totally overshadowed by things external. But that is the world in which we live. And it's always been that way. Unfortunately.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, it's great to have you on, although be it quickly. Martin Lipton, Chief Sports Writer for The Sun. It is amazing, Sun Sport. Get your paper today. What is it? Almost 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Morning Glory until 10. Jack Elson from The Sun next, and he calls on 0344 499 1000. But take a breather. News at 9 is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends, or welcome along, wherever you've been. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK on the home of free speech and common sense. It's Talk, and you're waking up or gearing up for the day with the following headlines. And to be honest, shocking, absolutely shocking. Police are still trying to find two prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison. I guess the one that's sort of garnered the most response is the front of the Express there, the Algerian sex attacker who was released by mistake. But we only found out yesterday he was released 6 days ago, so he's had a 6-day head start. David Lammy, the hapless Justice Secretary without a poppy, Indecent man. He didn't admit that this was a thing. I mean, he was just literally... Everybody knew this guy had escaped, been released, whatever you want to call it. Everybody knows that this guy should have been deported 5 days ago. This is our Deputy Prime Minister's response when he gets pushed by the Tory party. Have a listen, have a watch.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
Absolutely disgusting, in my humble opinion. I'd like to hear from you this morning. That man could be in charge of our country if something happened to Keir Starmer. We say a very good morning to a man whose career I created, who owes me a lot. Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
I came in this morning, I saw you on Sky and all your finery. I thought, I put that boy there.
Well, I had a late night last night,
I know
but I'm up to speak to you, Jeremy.
Hey, makes a change. It was for work, Jackie boy. Listen, great to have you on, my friend. Most of the viewers really focusing on Lammy this morning, that hapless performance at Prime Minister's Question Time. He basically said afterwards that he didn't want to admit... I mean, Kibatu 2 weeks ago was shocking. A sex offender, an illegal migrant released, taken back. I found it even more shocking that he was deported with 500 quid, but let's not start that one. Anyway, it happened again, a Algerian sex attack convict. But what so many people find appalling this morning is that A1, it was 6 days ago and the prison service didn't find out or didn't tell the police. And B2, that Lammy stood there and blatantly lied. And what's interesting, Jack, is that he said, I didn't want to impinge on the work the Met Police were doing. And they went, don't try and throw us under the bus, mate. You're the Justice Secretary. This is your bag and you have made a monumental cock-up. He is hapless, Jack, isn't he? Come on, be honest.
Yeah, and the scenes that we saw yesterday would genuinely be hilarious if they weren't so serious, because David Lammy came out yesterday and rather than answer the questions in the House of Commons put to him 5 times, whipped himself up into a lather, a pretty confected lather, I think we would say, and tried to turn everything back onto the Conservatives and would not address the fundamentals about people being released on our streets. Now, I have some sympathy, a modicum of sympathy, because clearly the prison system had been in crisis for a long, long time. You know, and when Shabana Mahmood came in, she was clearly forced to release a lot of them very, very quickly. However, 2 things I would point out, well, actually, multiple things. The first is that no one forced David Lammy or Labour Party to go for this government, and actually they chose to be in government. They chose to put their hands on the levers of power. And so rather than blaming the last lot, people don't care about that anymore. People want to know exactly what they're going to do about it. Second, for David Lammy then to come out and say that he has put in place the, quote, strongest checks ever. He said that yesterday. We know that 2 people are currently on the run after those checks came in, after the release of Harish Kabaso, the Ethiopian sex migrant. So clearly they're not the currently strongest checks ever. So what more are you going to do about it? I just thought that the behaviour yesterday, rather than sensibly, and listen, if he didn't want to get into everything in the House of Commons chamber, exactly, he could have said, listen, I understand there's been a case at HMP Wandsworth. I'm looking at the facts. I'm on top of the situation, and I will come back to the House of Commons when I have the full facts established. That would have been acceptable. But the fact that he dodged and ducked the questions, not once, twice, but 5 times, then refused to come back to the House of Commons chamber later, put out a mealy-mouthed statement about an hour after PMQs, basically blaming his officials and saying that They've been working throughout the night. I found out last night, but it's unacceptable sometimes. It takes unacceptably long for information to get to ministers. I just think really, really isn't good enough.
But you're a professional political journalist. You won't believe what I got told this morning. You'll tell me you know. He also said, and I quote, because you wouldn't believe this, right? People are. Look, let me read you a couple of things. John in Bristol. International criminals must be laughing at us. They must all think, let's go to the UK, because in the unlikely event that you actually get caught and you eventually get sentenced, it's highly likely you'll not only serve 30% of your sentence, which will get it, or it'll be bloody easy to be released and you won't even have to escape. They're that incompetent. Stephen Malden, why do we have to put these foreign criminals into our prisons to serve their sentences, then deport them? Shouldn't they go into a transit centre when sentenced and deported immediately? That would save money. David Lammy, you are right, made a massive thing, as they all did in opposition, about how incompetent the Tories are, and you know what I thought about the Tories at the end. But this willful sort of disregard for there's no responsibility taken by these people, and I think people. But do you know, Jack, I've got to tell you this. As much as that annoyed people, do you know our viewers and listeners were as equally appalled as I was by his complete lack of decency in not wearing a poppy? And I don't know if you've heard his excuse. Have you heard the excuse? This man is our Deputy Prime Minister and released a statement saying, I bought a new suit to appear at Prime Minister's Question Time because I wanted my godmother to be proud of me and I left my poppy on my other suit. I mean, calamity or what? Embarrassing, Jack. Embarrassing, man.
I think. Listen, David Lammy clearly thought that was a very genius get out of jail free card in the moment, saying that the reason he wasn't wearing a poppy, in his words, and this is the exact quote, he said, I'd been out suit shopping this morning because I knew my godmother would be watching. Knowing what we know now, the fact that he was told the night before that a sex offender was on the run,
yes,
rather than getting to his desk in the Ministry of Justice first thing that morning, he went out suit shopping.
Well, I'm going to suggest something that might shock a few people. Instead of sitting in his grace and favour gnawing on the latest chocolate bar whilst his officials worked all night, I, as the Justice Secretary, would have got myself to my department and worked through the bleeding night so I could have provided the House of Commons with the answers they demanded, quite rightly, of me.
Yeah, and listen, one of his junior ministers, who he sent out on the round to defend him this morning, has said that he was joking when he said that in the House of Commons, and he wasn't on Oxford Street buying his suit, which again begs the question why he wasn't wearing a poppy. Listen, if he had just inadvertently forgot to wear one, fine. I don't think it's a bit of a stretch, seeing as that he sat down in the Commons for 5 minutes, looking around. Everyone else is wearing a poppy, and somehow he couldn't seem to realise that he didn't have one on his own chest. But I genuinely do think that yesterday what we saw in the Commons was a total farce from start to finish, and it hasn't ended, because what we are seeing now, and we've seen it again this morning, is more prevarication, more mudslinging. Nobody cares how angry you are as ministers. Nobody cares how frustrated you are. Nobody cares about the constant blame we're trying to put on the Tories. The Tories took their medicine and they were absolutely punished for it. They got booted out of office, for goodness sake. They're in the political wilderness. People want to know, as ministers, what you are now going to do about it, because bragging that you've put in the strongest checks ever, when we still have people getting let out of prison like sieves by mistake, seems to be really concerning for people, and that's why people want to know what you're doing about it.
Paul in Fife sums it up for me, and we'll move on. David Lammy at Prime Minister's Question Time says, surely yesterday the worst display we've ever witnessed. The man was our Foreign Secretary, he is now our Justice Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and he cannot even control his temper in our Parliament to answer a very simple, justifiable and straightforward question. It's not going to go away. I think David Lammy is beneath contempt, in my humble opinion. 12 minutes past 9 with Jack Elsom from The Sun. The other story, of course, on the back of this manhunt that continues, is that the government... trying to keep a straight face with you, Jack. So... I do what I'll be doing all morning. We've got a problem with overcrowded prisons. What are we going to do about it? The Labour government. I'll tell you what we're going to do. When we give somebody 5 years, after about 3.5, if they've behaved well, 4 they get out, why don't we just let them serve 30% of the time and then let them out? And then if somebody else breaks the law, we can put them in that place for 30% of the time, and that will save us spending money. Right. Police chiefs this morning saying that this government sentencing bill will lead to an increase in crime, in their opinions, by as much as 6% in a single year. Another staggering misjudgment, surely, by this Labour government, Jack.
Yeah, well, obviously they came in and prisons were bursting at the seams. And so clearly there needs to be a massive exercise in building more prisons to incarcerate more people, something which has been desperately lacking over the past few decades. And I think they are actually putting plans to do that. But you're right, many of the public will be concerned that essentially what we're getting now is much softer sentences, and you can be released as the norm after 30% of your time served, just about a third of it. And for hardened criminals who this will apply to, they clearly are saying that they're going to, carve out the worst form of murderers, but you're still going to get pretty hardened criminals who are going to be able to be back on the streets after 30% of their sentence. It's just, I think that people are just losing faith with the state now, because one of the basic jobs is if someone commits a crime, you lock them up for their sentence.
But isn't one of the basic jobs of our government, though, also a democratically elected government, is to protect its people? And if you think about the idea of the Labour government is to release more prisoners to free up space, to release more prisoners to free up more space, when you consider that they are sterile in their approach to dealing with our borders, despite having years to prepare for this, and apparently they were going to smash the gangs, numbers continue to rise on a weekly basis. You then look at it and you go, do you have, without getting conspiratorial, do you have our best interests at heart? Do you want to protect the British public? And people all morning have just been going, do they actually care about the very fabric of Britain? I mean, how many people have said to you and me over the last few weeks, look what they did with those Nightingale hospitals, right? Are you telling me that we couldn't build even temporary prisons with barbed wire around and, as Peter Blexley said, snarling Alsatians? I don't understand why going to prison when you're given a sentence which matches the crime you've committed should be cut in half or even by 70% just to make way for getting over another issue. I'm actually of the belief that we should build prisons and we should make people serve their whole bloody sentence. That's what I think, but maybe I'm in the minority.
Yeah, you're right. And, this problem is essentially, a sort of supply and demand problem, isn't it? You can either pull the easy option and let more people out early, or actually you can put in the hard yards of building more prison space. And listen, obviously it takes time to build the prisons that we have, the HMPs, but you're right in the fact that, we could use sort of pop-up prisons. And they did, I think a few years ago, actually did use the idea of sort of almost like porter prisons, where it was very, pop-up, on disused land, whatever, and then people will be put into prison that way. It's clearly something which is being considered with illegal migration as well at the moment. So I think that the public is probably crying out for more radical solutions when it comes to various crises afflicting this country. I do think that the Labour government probably does want to. I'm not sure it's a conspiracy and them wanting crime to go up. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. But at the moment, clearly there is a massive democratic disconnect because the public want harder sentences, and polling shows the public are very tough on crime and do not like the fact that people can get away scot-free with breaking the laws of our land. And so the fact that more criminals are going to be out in the streets having served not very much time at all will really stick in the craw for people.
Somebody said to me this morning that this Labour Party is reaching that point where they can no longer blame the Tories, but the finger will be pointed at them after 15 months. Somebody else said to me this morning, can't remember because I'm getting old, that they know they're not going to win the next general election and they're just going to continue to go ahead with this balmy and barking mad approach. Because you just said something that, if I was in politics, you just said something that's absolutely true. The British people demand law and order. They want policemen and women on the streets getting intel so that criminals are found, jailed and made to serve their punishment. They want a legal system that doesn't allow us to pay tax for some barking left-wing human rights lawyer to get us off because apparently blah, 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 but you commit a crime, you go to prison. They want prison officers supported. They want all these things that that aren't rocket science, Jack. You listen, I'm old enough to be a dad, but that was what we were brought up on. You were scared of the police on the streets. We've just become apologists for almost everything. And I go back to it every day now. I think the British people have had enough. And I think that this Labour government is either incredibly thick, incredibly set in its ways, or I don't know what, disastrous. I'm going to change tack because I've got breaking news, and I know you watch this. You watch Traitors, don't you?
I do indeed. It's the finale tonight, but I've seen that the entire show apparently has been leaked online.
Celebrity Traitors is thrown into chaos as entire finale is leaked online. We've just had that break. I haven't seen one of them. Who's going to win?
Well, as a big rugby fan, I like Joe Marler.
Come on,
so I hope that he.
I know who wins. Before I saw before I even watched that, I can tell you who wins. Shall I do it? Or
well, no, do not tell me, because if I see another spoiler, then I'm going to scream. So absolutely not.
No, but I know who wins. I'll tell you who wins. Would you like me to tell you?
Who is it?
I can't. Garraway told me, but listen, you know, you crack on.
No, you can't tell me. You'll spoil it for everyone.
Oh look, he's so.
I'm logging off. I can't.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you very much indeed, Jack Elson, political editor of The Sun. We love him very much indeed. Listen, thank you so much indeed for all your response today. We've got a voice note. We're going to come back. I'm also going to speak to Layla Cunningham. Layla is an extraordinary human being, a Westminster City Councillor for Reform. My pick to be the next London mayor. This lady is astonishing. I've got so much to talk to her about, but we'll go to the break. Have we got a voice note? Where's that going? Oh, yeah. Ian, what do you make of David Lammy, son?
You don't think putting Calamity Lamity up at the House of Commons to talk about the farce that's the prison service is a deliberate cover, so it hides everything else about Morgan McSweeney and Mandelson and Rachel Reeves, you know. Don't forget Angela Rayner. Everything's all quiet about all of her capital gains tax and her stamp duty. And I think there are some other things that were going on that we've all forgotten about because we're talking about Calamity Lamity.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the Talk TV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:23. Is it Alex Phillips this morning at 10? It is Alex Phillips this morning. She's back from wherever she's been. All your calls and everything before that. Thank you for your text, 87222. Good morning to Malcolm. Jez, total disrespect to Lammy for not wearing a poppy. Malcolm's in Maidstone. Yeah, I think he's a complete and utter joke. Sharon Miller, what is wrong with this damn country? It gets worse every day. I hate this government. David Taylor from Lancashire, they wouldn't release someone by mistake if they wrote a tweet. What a fantastic comment that is. Linda's in Stalybridge. For every offender that's been let out of prison and stabs, murders and rapes, the victim should be able to sue this government for damages for not protecting the people of this country. Morning, Jez. I hope Maccabi Tel Aviv give Villa a sound thrashing tomorrow. I would love it, love it, love it. Poetic justice. Get religion out of sport and public office. Tony, good morning in Southampton. With reference to the prisons being full, how about removing single beds and putting bunk beds in? Prison space just doubled. Paul's in Peterborough. Morning, Jez, even I can't say my own name. Can you show Gary Neville that report about the Aston Villa process? No, actually I can't, because I haven't got his number, because I wouldn't speak to him. Sue in Lancashire. Just a thought, do you think the people in charge of staffing our prisons are employed on DEI and not on capability? Standards in Britain seem to me, says Sue Hagger, to be at an all-time low. Mick's in Wallington. Morning, Mick. Tonight in Aston Villa, in Aston, Birmingham, we will prove that we are an anti-Semitic country, fully supported by cowardly police chiefs and politicians, together with Avon and Somerset police chiefs' failure to bring Bob Villan to justice. Shameful, bloody cowardice. Simon in Surrey, enjoying the show. Thank you very much, Steve. And finally, for now, Blake in Wigan. Morning, Jez. Did Calamity Dave pay for his new suit himself? Did he put it on expenses? Was it a gift? The man is a complete... Ah, yes. Well, the first part of it was Bell. The second I'm not doing. 9:25. We say a very good morning to, and I make no apology for what I'm going to say. I believe this lady will undoubtedly be the next mayor of London and will destroy Sadiq Khan. Layla Cunningham, Westminster City Council for Reform. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have I got the job yet as your campaign manager? I saw you the other night. I managed to find your phone, didn't I? For goodness sake, what's going on?
No, that's true. That was a scary moment, and it wasn't even because it was mugged. I was mugged for it.
Oh, listen, now, I'm going to start differently. I don't want to start with Lammy. I want to start with something that's really generated huge interest this morning. Tonight in Birmingham, Aston Villa play Maccabi Tel Aviv in the Europa League. Several weeks ago, a group of, how do you put this, locals, it could be police, it could be community leaders, religious leaders, Layla, came together and said, we don't want any Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. The Jews are banned. The Jews are banned because there will be an uprising amongst the Muslim community. This is absolutely appalling. And people quite rightly said, this is so unfair. Why should there be, non-areas in Britain for Jews to go? We found a video I'd love your response to. This is an independent activist called Ahmed Yaqub. He put this out weeks ago, and a plan is still planning to demonstrate tonight against the team. Have a watch if you can.
6th of November, it's game over for Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. Protesters are coming from all over the UK peacefully. We're going to protest with our families and let people know the frustration that we have. Israel should not be in FIFA. There's over 30 organizations that are involved, and the numbers are going to be huge.
Absolutely. My message to those right-wing extremists and the barbaric Israeli supporters who are supporting Maccabi Tel Aviv, that the city of Birmingham and moreover Aston is the home of lions.
Lions, and we will not just remain silent when genocidal complicits come in and play football in our city. Remember that. I urge all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that.
Game over.
Game over.
Layla Cunningham from Reform. This has caused outrage this morning. I'd love your opinion if that's okay.
I mean, of course, you don't build peace by isolating Israelis or defending or silencing Jewish athletes. Sport is supposed to unite people, not become another stage for some political vendetta. This is intimidation, and anyone who wants to ban it should be ashamed.
Couldn't agree more. Well
That
said.
kind of if there are areas in this country where Jewish people don't feel safe, then it is not safe for any of us. And I know that there is growing anti-Semitism in London, and you know, I some of my closest friends are Jewish, like family, and for me, if the Jewish community or Jewish people don't feel safe in London, then it's not safe for any of us, and it's definitely not the London that we want or want to defend.
And why I asked you that question is, and I'm very interested in your answer, because I feel really, really strongly about this. I make this point the whole time. I find any racism abhorrent, but I am absolutely sick to the back teeth that anti-Semitism, people who want to ban Jewish communities, it's not given, it seems, later, the same consideration as Islamophobia or I don't like any racism at all, but I don't think the Jewish community is getting a fair crack of the whip, do you?
Of course not. And I've spoken to some of the Jewish community in London, and they've told me Sadiq Khan's ignored their cries for help or their cries for beefed up security or beefed up police. They've told me some attacks even go unanswered. I don't think it's afforded half the amount of energy or political power that the Islamic community gets. I don't, and you're right. And I think it's disgusting, actually.
Good. Let's talk about the two main news stories of the day. Oh my God, based in London, and you will be the next mayor. I wanted to make you will be. Don't worry about it. We woke up today and watched yesterday in almost abject horror. Police are still trying to find two prisoners who were released by mistake from Wandsworth Prison last week. The first, of course, is this Algerian sex attacker, a man who should have been deported 5 years ago, point one, who was released by mistake 6 days ago, point two. Nobody seemed to tell anybody in the police from the prison service. And then we had hapless David Lammy, that joke of a justice secretary who isn't even decent enough to wear a poppy, for God's sake, standing up and saying, I know nothing about it, I know nothing about it. And whilst he was doing it and everybody knew he was lying, another man, Billy Williams, who had just been released, had just been told to go to prison for 45 months, was released just after he'd been given his sentence. Wandsworth Prison, the prison service. What a joke, Layla Cunningham. Embarrassment.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't just mistakes. I mean, they're a symptom of a justice system that's just lost control. Foreign offenders are walking free. Apparently, the Prime Minister found out a week later. And what on earth is an Algerian man with a previous sex offence conviction still in this country? Why is he still here?
Yeah.
Let alone being released from prison by mistake. Foreign criminals should be deported automatically, full stop. If you break the law, and for me, that law is entering the country illegally at that point, then you lose your right to stay.
I find it... And Lammy, did you watch Lammy's performance? I mean, somebody said to me this morning that if something happened to Keir Starmer, who's bad enough, that buffoon would be the leader of the United Kingdom.
They don't care. It's the same pattern. The political class make the mess, but it's ordinary people like us that live with it. It's like, you know, they've run out of prison space and, you know, they're like, oh, 6%, crime's going to go up by 6% more. You know what? You should just suck it up, the public. because we can't afford new prisons. But actually, you know what? We're sending 13 billion in foreign green aid while crime rises here.
Well, you brought up the prison thing, which is the other story today. This government is so hapless. Its latest plan is to radically reform sentencing in the most ridiculous way, which is to basically say, just serve 30% of your time. We'll get you out. That'll get criminals on the streets, but don't worry about that. We can put more people in prison and then let them out after 30% of the time. But the police already going against Labour and saying crime will rise by as much as 6% in a single year. We are not paid to spout being anti-anything. We're paid to look at all sides of the argument. But you cannot, with a brain cell in your head, anybody, not look at this government and just go, what a hapless bunch of ideologically based, reality removed. I just don't get how bad they are, Layla.
Sometimes I feel it must come from a fundamental hatred of the British public.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. They know what the public wants.
Yeah.
Like you said with your previous guest, or something you said, polling shows that, people want public safety, and they've deprioritized public safety again. You feel like every time there's a choice between protecting the public or protecting the system or their political position, they choose the system. And instead, and we're paying the price.
Maybe, as somebody said to me this morning, they know there's not a cat in hell's chance of them being re-elected in 29, and they're just going full steam ahead. But again, you make a really good point. Common sense. Where is the common sense? If you know the public are interested massively in, law and order, cheaper electricity, lower taxation, a strong border, all the things that Reform and other parties, I accept that, talk about. Why do you blatantly do the opposite? Are you that warped? Are you that in belief that you're right, that you're ignoring the majority, which is why Reform is riding as high in the polls as it is, because it seems to be the only party right now that is listing and has its finger on the pulse of the British people.
And they can't, all they do is smear us. They can't attack us on any of our policy. They want to take away they want to remove prison sentences from anyone who gets 12 months or less. The sex offender in Epping got 12 months.
Yep.
Does that mean under his new rules, would he even serve that? Would he see the inside of a cell? And it sends the most, I'm so angry because it sends the worst message possible. It tells every offender in the country, you know what, there's no consequences. Break the law, you'll get a community order, which is really not that much. And you'll get another chance. But you know what, Jeremy, victims don't get a second chance at life.
Absolutely.
That 14-year-old girl, she's going to be scarred for life emotionally.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, it's lovely to
build new prisons. Protect the public first. But the problem is, Jeremy, we have a government that really doesn't share our fears. I think
that's the frightening point, and you nailed it. That we have a government that is neither proud of this country. I mean, you know that the number one rule of any elected government is to protect its population. And if you look at the fact we're allowing thousands of unvetted young men, not families, so don't start on me, into this country to commit crime, along with other criminals who now hear that if you do commit a crime, you'll only have to serve about a third of the sentence, so why not go ahead with it? It got it all wrong. There's no police men and women on the streets for fear of upsetting people. We seem to make excuses for the perpetrators of crime and do absolutely, as you quite rightly say, nothing about the victims. And as for that weasel in London who you're going to beat, I don't know. DEI all day and does nothing, absolutely nothing, about a knife crime epidemic. Bizarre.
Not only that, he hasn't even commented on the 9,000 cases that the Met's reviewing for the rape gangs. 9,000, they got 9,000 cases wrong?
Yeah.
That they have to review it. Where's the statement on that?
Well, there's no statement because he's hamstrung like the Labour Party is, because they're concerned they'll lose a proportion of the vote across the UK. And that's it.
Exactly that. And the message to victims and the public is, you know what, your safety is optional.
Yeah.
Your safety is only important to us if it's convenient for us. And that's the problem.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, great to have you on. She's done the school run, she's done this, she runs around like a headless chicken. Layla, thank you so much indeed. Layla Cunningham, live and exclusive on Morning Glory. What is it, 24 minutes to 10 o'clock? We're live across the UK. Good morning to Jenny in Bicester. Jez, 3 out of every 4 released early are back in prison. Well, that means it's not working. No, it's not. Hello to John, who says, what is more worrying about the Algerian sex offender released accidentally is that the only reason that they realised he'd been released is when he failed to turn up for a court hearing. Otherwise, they might not have known at all. Good God, is that true, David? This UK's government and the previous one should stop giving money away to France and foreign aid, and of course the illegals, they should ship out the ones that come in on boats and start building future prisons. They should start doing right by this country. Oh, blimey. Good morning, Jez. Germany is deporting 1 million migrants and we can't even recognise that we have the same problem. We are totally incompetent. Bill in God's country in Northumberland. And Danny, morning, Jez. We're hearing about the 3 people being released from that prison. Surely, this is the one in Wandsworth, surely there must be a load more. Oh, this is interesting. I have been a season ticket holder at Villa for over 25 years with my son sat alongside since the age of 4. We will be going tonight and supporting our Jewish friends. I have never, ever been more embarrassed for my city. In the next 22 minutes, the story of a man who's being charged over £4,000 to buy back his own flags that the council took down from lampposts, and a response from Rupert Bell to the breaking news on the front of the Sun today that Meghan, yes, that one, the one who makes jam, is back in a new movie, playing herself. And as somebody pointed out, I'm quite confused, says Karen, about the Meghan Markle acting the movie as herself, because she's reinvented herself so many times. Does she actually know which person to play? Very good point. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Yes, Alex Phillips here from 10 o'clock. The housewife's choice that is Ian Collins, Mrs. Carl's favourite from 1 o'clock, and Peter Cardwell on Drive. I don't know why I did that. Welcome to Morning Glory. Thanks for your text. Leslie says, hi, Jez. Why is London Mayor Sadiq Khan on a jolly in Brazil at COP30? I tell you, there's a lot of them have gone. The ones that believe in, you know, net zero or net stupid zero, as Ticey says. They've basically gone to Brazil in their gas-guzzling jets. You try saying that. But also what's important is they've had to build roads and stuff over there and dig down trees and use all that energy to do it so that they can go to a conference. It's a bit like the EU. Spend lots of money on having a fantastic time and talk about how the world's on its arse. Yeah, that's quite good. Andy says, that Yaqub is apparently a solicitor. He was representing the Manchester Muslim double that beat up the police officers, says Andy in West Drayton. I think you're right. Interesting. This one, hi, Jez. If Lammy goes, will it open the door for our Ange to be reinstated as the Deputy Prime Minister? Not yet, but I think she's definitely on manoeuvre. She's currently a bit busy, Leslie. She's got a new property company. Do you know about that? It's called Wrong Move. I know it's a cheap shot, but I thought I'd drop it in. Steve, good morning.
I think not only should we ask Lammy to resign, but I think the Speaker's got to go as well. One, he can't count, and two, for continuously letting him get away with not answering a question. For God's sake, what's going on in that place?
Somebody said to me, how can you trust any person who's got a lady's name? Lindsay Hoyle, I'm not getting involved. He's the Speaker. He's under fire this morning, and quite right. Now, next, this is just the sort of story that I love doing. We're going to say a very good morning in a sec to a young man, Sean Remmer, a supply teacher from North... Well, he's actually from a brilliant part of town. He's in Yorkshire. He's in near York, but Thirsk. He's been charged £4,000 by his local council to buy back his own flags that he put up to support Unite Britain. It's an extraordinary story. Let me just read something before I introduce him. A supply teacher alleges he was let go from his dream job after being snitched on for putting flags up for his hometown. Sean Remmer, Thirsk, says he adored his job as a teaching assistant at Welburn Hall School in York, but last month his world came crashing down. The 49-year-old father of one says he's been putting up British and other flags around the town as a symbol of the UK's unity. He claims to have put up 150 flags and says many welcome the decorations, with neighbours shaking his hand in the street. Good morning, Sean Remmer. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Very well, thank you.
What an absolute bloody disgrace. And I'm not talking about that shirt, mate. What? Well, just a joke. I've got 11 down. What? Don't lie down in the road. You look like a zebra crossing. Sean, on a serious note, two things. Because you put up flags supporting and being proud of your country, although Gary Neville would call you divisive, he can shut up, you lost your dream job.
It was regarding flags, and it was also regarding the rape gangs I was posting about. So it was basically, I was posting about all the rape gangs coming through, you know, and it was, because it's something that a lot of people don't know, that, I mean, my brother, he saw you on your show many years ago, because he was, I think it was the first male on your show that came out that he was abused when he was 7 years old by a man.
Is this on the Jeremy Kyle show?
Yes, that's correct, yeah. And that's what's galvanised me. You know, it's been really, you know, behind me to share what's happening to these young children, you know, and that's the backstory for me doing most of it as well. Yeah, so they got rid of me because I was sharing that, and obviously the flags as well.
I didn't know that. I don't know if the guys were aware of that as well. So years ago,
I've kept that.
Your brother came on the Jeremy Kyle show on ITV. He'd been abused as a young boy. That frames your belief that you should, quite rightly, out people who abuse children, irrespective of their colour, creed or religion. I'm just of the mindset, right, Stevie, that anybody who thinks that's acceptable, I don't want them in my society. I'm not even arguing about that. Along with the flags, you put them up, you're proud of your country, you've lost your job, you're being charged $4,000. What do you make of the state of this country, pal?
Honestly, when I got the letter from Mr. Battersby at NYCC, saying that if I put any more flags up, I will be charged the full amount, and I saw the cost, and it was like £4,500. I'm like, and it took 4 hours work. They got 2 crews in. Now, from what I'm told is the local depot, the highways agency, the guys in there refused to do it.
Good for them.
They wouldn't do it. So they had to outsource it to another company who, they got 2 vehicles, came down, did it in the middle of the night, and basically charged £4,560.
Have you got to pay that? I've actually got a response from the North Yorkshire Council's Corporate Director of the Environment. This is Mr. Battersby. Yeah. Yes, he used to be in Coronation Street, didn't he, Carl?
Yeah.
We have been very clear on the law regarding this matter and taken pains to explain this in writing more than once to those involved. The use of highways assets in some of the ways we've seen is unsafe, and we understand has included people climbing ladders on the highway, leaning them against lampposts or other highways infrastructure, undertaking this while traffic is passing, and so on and so on and so on. Can I ask you, and let me tell you, Sean, respect from all of us here, I I don't understand why we've become a country of apologists that can't fly their flag. I've listened to people like Neville go, it's divisive. Well, so's waving a Palestinian flag, so's waving lots of other flags. But apparently in this country, whereas the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish can be proud, if we're proud, apparently we're far right. I think it's tosh. For you, despite what you've lost, despite the fines, despite the job, you're proud of your country. You're not going to change.
Absolutely. And I want to make it better. You know, I'm trying to unite. I mean, the town really got behind it. It's been brilliant. You know, absolutely fantastic. The town have been really good. Like on my stall on a Saturday, I didn't set up until like 11 o'clock. I've been there 5-6 hours.
And you were released. You were released from your dream job because of your views.
Yeah, basically.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's horrendous. I love the kids there. It was great. I've been doing it a year, and I wish I'd done it years ago because I kind of found my forte. You know, it was amazing.
Somebody here will be watching this. I'd say respect to you. I'd say you're proud of your country, and I'd say speaking out after your brother. And I didn't know that was on my show 20 years ago because he'd been abused as a young boy. I think it's amazing, and we support you, my friend. We're not condoning anybody breaking the law, but when councils come out with stuff like, oh, you've put a lamppost up or you've done this, it's absolute tosh. Really respect it. Really respect you being on, my friend. Thank you so much indeed. Sean Remmer there, a guy who has been talking about child abuse, who's been talking about flags and is in trouble with the council. What the hell has this come to? Rupert Bell's next because Meghan's a new movie star. Don't go anywhere.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 10. Alex Phillips here from 10 o'clock. Stuart Brown, if you could put me in touch with Sean, I will go and put new Union Jacks and St George's flags all around his town. People outraged by that story. He lost his job because he talked about child abuse, the grooming gangs. His job, his dream job as a teaching assistant. He's now in danger of being fined £4,000 by the local council for daring to put up the Union Jack. Good morning to, I've no idea, Jess. It's Jez, not Jess. I don't mind that, Jess. I hope that tonight the Aston Villa fans give the Israeli team a standing ovation. That way the protest organisers will see what this country genuinely thinks. Just to finish, the breaking news this morning, written on the front of the Amazing Sun newspaper by the brilliant Clemmy Moody. Meghan Markle, God, having failed at making jam, potpourri and coloured water, flavoured water, is making a return as a movie star. Rupert Bell, a very good morning, sir. Royal correspondent today, table tennis correspondent tomorrow. How are you, Belly?
Very good, and I'm going to the Aston Villa game tonight as well as a season ticket holder, so there you go.
Well, let me ask you straight away your response to that. Why should we ban Jewish football fans from anywhere in the United Kingdom? Who the hell do these people think they are?
I personally don't see why they have. Last year we had Legia Warsaw fans who were banned from the ground, but they have, although there has been some Maccabi Tel Aviv issues with their fans, obviously it was a decision taken given the sort of maybe the people thinking of what's around the area around, which is a heavily Asian community around Aston. So maybe they feel that that's the problem. But
well, we've been playing videos this morning of a certain young man who's activating lots of Muslims to come and be anti-Jewish and calling them genocidal scum. Let's talk about Meghan Markle. We talked the other day about flavoured water. We've talked about jam. We've talked about how this woman tries to reinvent herself when in fact she should just go away somewhere. Today, I'm Meghan a movie. And this is the best bit, she's so bleeding sycophantic, she's going to star in a movie as herself.
Yes, Close Personal Friends is the name of the movie, and she's doing a cameo. Look, Donald Trump did a cameo in Home Alone, and cameos are quite often the thing. So I imagine it was only 2 days filming, a bit of glad handing and feeling special, and away she goes. Now, she wasn't an actress in Suits, which I'm sad to say have yet to watch an episode of Suits, but it was popular and she was one of the lead characters in it. But as Harry has supposedly said, well, I'm happy she's out doing what she wants to do. But at the moment, she's trying absolutely everything and hoping something sticks. And that is the problem at the moment. Her jam or spread or whatever that she has, saying that she's made and with love and all that. Fine, she's desperate to try and make a fast buck and be relevant, and maybe going back to acting, which is what she did before, is a way of doing it. But can you see her being a lead in a film?
Well, I was going to tell I told a story earlier and people were like, I can't believe that. The boys and I go on a golf trip once a year to Florida, and it's a really, really set sort of schedule. Get up early, big breakfast, go and play golf, have a few drinks, spend the afternoon chilling, then go out for dinner. It's 8 days, every single afternoon. And listen, I lived in America. There's thousands of television channels to pick from. We only watch repeats of Deal No Deal from the late 90s and early 2000s with Howie, because they're on box 23, looking as dumb as ever, like this, is Meghan Markle. I think you said it right. She'll do anything for a fast buck, but also for attention, Belly. Come in, Alex. Don't worry about that. Come in. I'm talking to Belly. All right.
I would say she is desperate for attention, and this is all part of her craving, always trying to be relevant, and obviously this is coming out when the news about William is down in Brazil doing his Earthshot work, which is obviously attracting a little bit of controversy with all Keir Starmer down there and Ed Miliband down there. But for William, this is a serious thing that he's involved in. But it does seem to, with the cop element, be taken over by a lot of politicians. So William is out on his sort of front line, as it were. But inevitably, we get Harry going to Canada in the Remembrance story. And now we've got a story about Meghan returning to acting, which will, and clearly, as you see, it's on the front page of The Sun, has upstaged William's work with regard to Earthshot.
It is frighteningly, embarrassingly worrying, isn't it? The royals are all about who can get the front page. Belly, you're a legend. We love you. Good luck. Are you off to COP30 or not?
No, I'm off to the Villa Park tonight. That's my tonight is where, and hopefully we will win. That's all I hope.
Make sure you cheer Maccabi Tel Aviv for being there. Thank you, Sean. Hello to an angry OAP from Dorset. Jez, I put a couple of St George's flags on the corners of my bungalow. I was thinking of taking them down, but having heard that dreadful story about Sean, I'm going to keep them up. We say at 2 minutes to 10. A very good morning to Alex Phillips, looking very glamorous today. Same sort of dress as Samara Gill had on earlier. No shoulders. Is it the latest fashion?
I've had this since I was an MEP in Brussels, and I haven't worn it for ages.
Is that why it's black? Because that dream died, is it?
Exactly, no, exactly.
Did you like what I did there?
I love that. RIP membership of the EU.
We haven't got long, my darling. How are you?
I'm all right, yeah, not bad.
I don't know where, I mean, prisoners, David Lammy,
the
coffee,
thing that I really want to max out on today is this Muslim march is going to be taking place in Birmingham.
Have you seen the clip?
I've seen the clip.
I haven't got time to play it. It is absolutely...
Oh, it's terrifying.
Akmir...
I mean, they're there. He's on my show, old Ahmed Yaqub.
What, today?
Yeah, I'm going to be grilling him.
He's already... Does he know what he's let himself in for?
Well, he's already threatened me with 2 legal suits before.
Is it true that he's the one that represented the solicitor, the 2 Muslims at Manchester Airport?
He was. But actually, you can just Google him and look at his rap sheet, because he's not a man without blemishes.
No.
But the fact that this guy is once again trying to